Murim was a world where superhumans could break mountains and move rivers with a single swing. The man looked out at the landscape, remembering that crazy place. The battles there were constant and brutal. He had to fight just to survive another day. At the same time, it was a world where people could be drinking together in the evening after trying to kill each other during the day. Swords clashed, and the tension was high. They raised their cups and celebrated, but the protagonist was frustrated. He was thinking, damn it. As he fell, he remembered that kind of life was only for the powerful and then influential clans of Murim. He was just a nobody. The protagonist thought it was all a bunch of garbage. He was saying that it was an extremely ruthless place for a lowly, insignificant creature, like a mere novice in the world of martial arts, to endure. He was so frustrated about it. At the same time, he almost missed the Hell Peninsula, where he was in debt and overwhelmed with schoolwork. The guy was clearly in distress. He admitted that he missed Heaven's Peninsula so much. Energy started swirling around. It was a sign that something big was about to happen. The protagonist suddenly appeared behind an older man. He shouted that he had caught the rascal. The guy was relentless. He remembered the 7 years he spent rolling with the punches and surviving the wilderness. The protagonist was staring death in the face, but he refused to give up. He shouted that there was no way he was dying like this. No way at all. He remembered an old man talking about a sword. The old man said that the sword was a relic, and with it, he would be able to eat for a long time. The man looked very serious. The old man continued, telling him not to be intimidated and to only look for solid fights. He explained that way he would be able to live on a knife's edge. Then the protagonist asked the old man to tell him his name. The master then revealed his name was Doghorn. Back in the present, the protagonist was looking at his stats. He noticed he was ranked as unranked and untested. He was shocked and repeated the words in disbelief. He thought to himself that he had only ever gotten away with it once. He was in a really bad spot. And immediately, Kim Il-yong was sent flying through the air, completely outmatched. He was moving so fast that he was just a blur. Kim Il-yong looked absolutely furious as he glared at his opponent. He was ready to unleash everything he had. The guy looked serious as he stared down at the blade coming right at him. It was moving fast. Suddenly, a massive energy blast erupted, shaking the entire area. The power of the attack was intense. The attacker moved with incredible speed. His sword aimed right at the enemy. At the same time, the guy on the receiving end looked furious, realizing he'd been tricked with cheap tactics. Another figure was standing on the roof, looking down at the scene below. He explained that his true AMGI was hidden in darkness and the sound of breaking waves, and it was a paralyzing poison, but it wouldn't kill so easily. The guy with the sword looked absolutely furious, yelling that if the other guy thought he could make a fool of him, he might as well just kill him. But suddenly, Kim Il-yong looked surprised and said, "Oh my god." The guy who was attacking decided he'd had enough and was leaving. He told Kim Il-yong not to come after him. He was still angry, yelling that the heavens would punish him for this. At the bottom, the man looked up, furious. The man screamed as loud as the sky. After falling into the unfamiliar world of Murim, Kim Il-yong recalled crying out to all sorts of gods, but it was all in vain. He remembered lying on the floor, completely defeated. Kim Il-yong remembered falling into poverty in the Murim world. He thought that the only reason he had been able to survive until now was because he had pursued strength above all else. Mighty conquerors reign supreme, he thought. Murim is a really rough place, he thought. In order to survive and become stronger, he had to endure countless filthy situations without any hesitation, and so he had achieved the status of a top-ranked warrior. However, the sweetness of achievement is also fleeting, he realized. He had come so far, but it never felt like enough. His skills in martial arts had hit a complete dead end in front of the pinnacle barrier. He was stuck, and he didn't know how to break through. For the uninitiated, the next level is like a drug. He needed that next level. He needed that power. Kim Il-yong obtained the secret delivery of the top-class martial artist. Then, he looked down at 5 pills of Bi Huan Dan in his hand. He thought it was worth the risk. He believed that if he ate all of those pills, his personal breakthrough that was blocked at the peak of his abilities would finally be pierced. He was determined to reach the pinnacle of Murim. Kim Il-yong's eyes narrowed with determination. He was ready to reach the pinnacle of Murim. He had worked so hard for this moment, and he wasn't going to let anything stop him. Someone watched him from afar, realizing that the guy was a skilled thief who used deception as his weapon. He had stolen the secret techniques of the Bi Huan Dan and the Mu Gong Bai Jup. The observer was shocked by this revelation. Kim Il-yong was suddenly confronted by the observer. The guy asked him what was up and if he was being uptight again. He hadn't realized the other person was so close to him. Kim Il-yong fired back, asking who the bald guy was calling rude. He insisted that he didn't do an ambush. He then asked if the bald guy was so confident that he could take his neck at any time. He called the bald guy cheat. Kim Il-yong asked who the bald guy thought he would turn to. He said fortune-telling meant nothing to him. He had learned and mastered it himself, so why should he rely on it? The bald guy said that the secret medicine special techniques were for the future successors of their Amifa clan. He told Segma to remember that, and immediately, Kim Il-yong realized he messed up by stealing from the Amifa clan, thinking he was screwed. The bald man said that stealing the clan's elixirs and secret techniques was a crime punishable only by death. Kim Il-yong thought he was done for, as he wondered who was going to make it easy for him too. Kim Il-yong paused, confused by the situation. He looked around, trying to figure out what was going on. The sword came down with deadly force, aimed right at him. At the same time, Kim Il-yong remembered a time when he was a beggar, calling out for his master. He felt his life slipping away, like it was all for nothing. He wondered how he even made it this far, only to end up like this. He thought this was not how it was supposed to end. He thought he was about to die, just like before. He was ready to give up, but everything went dark. He was out cold. Suddenly, Kim Il-yong shouted, denying everything. He was standing in the middle of the classroom, looking around completely lost. Kim Il-yong was completely disoriented and shouted, wondering what the hell was going on. He looked around, trying to figure out where he was. Upstairs, the students were looking at Kim Il-yong with confusion. The professor asked him if he had suddenly gone crazy. Downstairs, the professor seemed annoyed, tapping his pointer on the desk. Kim Il-yong was still trying to process what was happening. He wondered if he was back on Earth, asking if this was real. The professor repeated his question, wondering why the student was yelling all of a sudden. Kim Il-yong thought he was dreaming, but it felt too real to be just a dream. The professor was waiting for an answer. Kim Il-yong just stared at him, completely lost. He asked the professor what was going on, still trying to figure out where he was. Kim Il-yong, with tears streaming down his face, suddenly demanded that the professor hit him with the pointer. He seemed desperate for something to happen, his expression a mix of pain and anticipation. The professor looked at Kim Il-yong like he was out of his mind, holding the pointer in his hand. He was clearly confused by the sudden outburst, and immediately, his expression changed to one of shock as he realized something. He mumbled, wondering what the hell this guy was, before realizing it could be another returnee. Kim Il-yong tilted his head, completely lost. He was even more confused by the professor's reaction, wondering what he meant by returnee. He just replied, yes. Kim Il-yong was lying on the bed, looking at his phone. He wondered if the dimensional rift was the reason he got caught up in all this. Below, the screen showed information about returnees. The screen explained that returnees from another dimension have high mana affinity and a good chance of getting an unique class upon awakening. Kim Il-yong started thinking about mana and unique classes. The screen also mentioned Travia being sought after by clans and nations, but only if they have a good class selection. A phone was on the bed, vibrating with notifications, but Kim Il-yong was already sitting in front of the TV. He was ready to see what the news had to say. The news reported that the crystal elixir, which was auctioned at a Geneva hotel in Switzerland, was sold for 303.8 billion won. Kim Il-yong was interested. The report described the elixir as a medicine that grants eternal life, like something out of a fantasy novel. The news announced that the winner of the bid for this Pangea leap was Chairman Lee Kang-ho of the Il-sung Group. The announcer repeated Lee Kang-ho's name. Before getting swept up in the world of martial arts, he was just a nobleman. But now, thanks to the crystal elixir, it seemed he could live a long life in this world. Someone was flipping through channels on the TV. The screen showed an ad for the Narangjin Knights and Wizards Academy, promising to help people awaken their inner adventurer with the help of veteran adventurers and instructor Kang Sejin. The ad encouraged viewers to call now. The next ad showed magical interpreter earmuffs that let you understand any language just by putting them on. It then switched to an ad for Feng Li Wan, who could make your bust fuller and increase your self-confidence. The ads were pretty wild. Kim Il-yong laughed at the TV, but immediately he fell back onto the bed. So, Kim Il-yong decided to get things straightened out. The screen showed a text box explaining that one day, a sudden and mysterious dimensional portal connected to the peaceful Earth, and through that connected passage, a god named Jamoshin from Pangea came to speak to humanity on Earth. It was all so sudden, so Jamoshin Osiris greeted the other worlders, which sent shockwaves around the world. The guy in the suit looked surprised by what he was hearing. In the middle of all the shock and confusion, Jamoshin Osiris proposed a partnership and exchange to the Earthlings. Jamoshin Osiris's subordinates were those who drank from him in their dimension, Pangea. In other words, he told everyone that if they hunted a monster, he would let them have all the rights to it and the loot from that monster. And the result, as you can see on TV right now, was adventurers. Some powerful monsters have mana stones in their bodies that contain energy for processing. The mana stones were synergized with the mana circuits that Jamoshin had taught them, revolutionizing Earth's energy industry. Planes and cars now ran on mana. Plus, there was a variety of mana-containing materials, from monsters and mysterious artifacts scattered throughout Pangea. There were healing potions that could cure wounds in an instant, various magical weapons and artifacts, and elixirs that could revive anyone as long as they're still breathing. Kim Il-yong was back on Earth, and he couldn't help but laugh. He was so happy to be back. He wondered what had changed while he was gone. He looked thoughtful, maybe remembering something from his past. He was trying to figure out what he wanted to do now. He had wanted to escape so badly from that other world. But now that he was back, he realized he missed his martial arts skills. He felt a great sense of loss. Kim Il-yong saw a contact on his phone, and his eyes widened. He wondered if it was who he thought it was. He asked if it was Soon Chang. Soon Chang Park answered the phone, sounding super excited. He was happy to hear from Kim Il-yong and said he really did come back after 4 years of disappearing. Soon Chang Park was saying that it had been 7 years since Kim Il-yong left this world. He thought the concept of time was weird. He explained that some people spend 10 years on the other side and come back in a year. He told him to be thankful that he made it back. And then he mentioned hearing that Kim Il-yong told his professor to beat him up or something. Soon Chang Park asked if the rumor really got that far already. He said that news of a returnee spreads like the wind. He continued, saying that if a returnee awakens, they are the only class, right? He added that he was sure Kim Il-yong's departmental chat room was going crazy right now. Kim Il-yong asked when Soon Chang Park was going to do the awakening test. Soon Chang Park asked why he ended his sentences with a question mark. He told Kim Il-yong that he should be an adventurer, too. He called it a life-changing lottery ticket and asked if he would scratch it. Kim Il-yong asked, "You too?" Then he asked Soon Chang Park if he was an adventurer, too. Soon Chang Park replied that that's why he called right away. Soon Chang Park said that it was really weird, by the way. Kim Il-yong asked what he meant. Soon Chang Park replied that their department alone had produced 2 of those rare returnees, including Kim Il-yong. Kim Il-yong then asked if Soon Chang Park made a lot of money as an adventurer. Soon Chang Park replied that he made a lot of money, more than he could imagine. The next day, the scene shows the Adventurers Association building. It was a beautiful day, and it was a good day to pass the exam, or so they said. It was like SAT day, apparently. The guy walked with his hands in his pockets, looking confident. The crowd was going wild, cheering on Adventurer of Applied Sciences Major Kim Jin-mo, telling him to challenge one of the major clans. Meanwhile, another guy was telling someone that his instructor said he had never seen a stone head like his before, and with that kind of hair, he was sure to get noticed by the gods. A woman told Jia that the god of magic had a high level of pride, so she must always behave politely around him. Jia replied that she had been working on everything for today, and that she was going to be a wizard just like the other woman. At the same time, a man was cheering himself on, saying he was the only one with no one else. Suddenly, someone yelled that there was a returnee. The crowd started pointing and whispering, confirming that it was indeed a returnee. The guy looked up, asking what the hell was going on. He was clearly confused by the commotion. At the same time, the crowd was going wild, shouting about a returnee and demanding the story. The guy put his hands up, saying that he hadn't even created a signature yet. He seemed pretty nervous about whatever was happening. Someone shouted, telling people to get out of the way. Meanwhile, another guy looked around with a confused expression, wondering if they were talking to him. The guy was surrounded by people, but he insisted that he was just standing there and not even looking at them. He seemed a little overwhelmed by the attention. Turns out, the crowd was swarming returnee Honghua Yan, who was apparently the second returnee from her family. But the guy who thought they were talking to him was relieved, realizing it wasn't him after all. The crowd swarmed Honghua Yan, asking if she had any awakening tips from her brother, who was apparently a S-class adventurer. They also wanted to know if her family specialized in awakening adventurers. At the same time, 2 guys were talking, with one asking where the hell the other returnees were. The other guy responded, letting them know he was right behind them, calling them jerks. The atmosphere in the team room was heavy. A guy was standing in the room, looking around. He seemed to be taking it all in. It was announced that the awakening tests for prospective adventurers were coming soon. The test was an adventurer awakening test, conducted with a divine stone, and they wished everyone the best of luck with their exams. Below, a man walked towards a podium, ready to speak. The crowd was running, creating a lot of noise. It looked like something had happened. Below, a man looked surprised, muttering that was fast. A woman spoke up, announcing that they were going to get started with the awakening test. She looked determined and ready to begin. The cloth was lifted, revealing a pedestal that seemed to glow from within. Everyone watched with anticipation, wondering what was about to happen. The instructor told the next person to put a drop of battle marks on the glowing orb. He waited patiently, watching as the next person stepped up. The drop of battle marks fell onto the orb, causing it to glow even brighter. As a result, the man's face was bathed in red light, and he looked nervous. The man felt a jolt as the orb reacted to his battle marks, and immediately, he yelled out that God had spoken to him. Overwhelmed by the experience, the instructor read the results, telling him he was in luck. Turns out, his name was Kang Baek-chul. He was level 1, and his class was Vanguard. The man was shocked, saying he couldn't believe it was all about levels and stats, like a game. The instructor congratulated Mr. Kang, telling him that his class was classified as a high-level Vanguard, and immediately, Kang Baek-chul started cheering, saying that his son had finally done it, and that he was set for life. At the same time, the Pangea guide explained that Vanguard was a fearsome class that leads from the front and crushes enemies. Meanwhile, the observers were already taking notes, saying that these rookies were worth keeping an eye on. They added that even though he might not have much hair, he was a talented young man. The representatives of the 5 major clans were starting to move, likely trying to recruit the new talent. But Kim Sang-ji was not having a good day. His status screen revealed that he was a level 1 porter, and he thought to himself that he was a low-class porter. Kim Sang-ji kneeled down, thinking that this couldn't be happening to him. As a result, the Pangea guide informed everyone that porter was the lowest class, practically a class that struggles with adventure activities, and that it was better to give up on Pangea and return to everyday life. Next up was Jia, and the instructor told her that she was a novice adventurer and a wizard class. She added that although her class was intermediate, her mana was measured to be very high, and immediately, Jia thanked her, saying that now she could be a wizard like her dad too. The man in the suit thought that mana was a natural gift, something you couldn't train like physical skills. He remembered that it was a good thing he had gotten some training in this area from that rascal, Sun Chang. The instructor called out for the next adventurer, Miss Hong Hua Yan. Hong Hua Yan had been called up to the front, ready to show off her skills. Hong Hua Yan dripped some battle marks onto the new stone, muttering ash under her breath. The drop of battle marks landed on the stone with a soft thud. As the battle marks soaked into the stone, a message appeared, Pangea's God System. A strange energy pulsed from the stone, reaching out into the cosmos. The system returned, bringing with it a message. Where a beautiful God is, beauty will also stay. Please keep order. The words seemed to echo through the very building. The first man yelled to get out of his way, saying that he had picked this one. He was ready to fight anyone who stood in his path, and immediately, a second man yelled back, telling him to get out of the way too. The first man asked what was going on, stating that he was done. He suggested that they make a deal. Below them, a cloaked figure demanded they get out of the way, wondering what that abomination was. The 2 men shook hands, agreeing that they gave up. They looked relieved to be done with whatever they were doing. The cloaked figure declared that the child was theirs. They held a scythe, looking ready to take what they wanted. Hong Hua Yan's stats appeared, showing her level was 1. Her class was listed as location, and her divine contact was Harvest God. Her strength was 6, agility 6, stamina 5, mana 22, and intelligence 18. The announcer revealed that her class was Witch, and that she had a lot of mana and stamina. The crowd was shocked, because no one had ever seen that class before. They congratulated Hong Hua Yan for being the only one of her class. Hong Hua Yan thanked everyone with a bright smile. As a result, she walked down the hallway, excited about her new class. The crowd wondered what the heck a witch class even was. One of them speculated if it had something to do with spells or curses, but another person pointed out that she had 22 mana for her initial awakening, which was a lot. The announcer declared that she was a super rookie and an unconditional number 1 pick. He then called for the next person to come up. A man wondered why Hong Hua Yan was next in line. He looked annoyed that she was getting special treatment. Kim Il-young thought that things had been getting more complicated since he got here. He wondered if he was really cut out to be an adventurer. As he was thinking, the people in front of him confirmed that he was Kim Il-young, a prospective adventurer, and they wanted him to answer. Kim Il-young heard someone say that he was back again. At the same time, some people were wondering if anyone knew anything about that returner. One of them was Hong Hwa-yeon, who was peeking through the door. The man told Kim Il-young to drip his battle marks here. He didn't seem to have a choice, so he just went along with it. Kim Il-young told himself not to worry. As the words left his lips, a needle pricked his finger, drawing battle marks. The battle marks dripped into the bowl, creating a strange glowing effect. The room was silent as everyone watched the ritual unfold. Kim Il-young looked annoyed, like he had a headache coming, and immediately his eyes snapped open and he felt like yelling. He was clearly not happy about something. Someone asked if he was back again and what he was up to today. The crowd wondered out loud who would be a romantic in a martial arts world. They seemed to be joking about it. Someone asked where the hell that place was and if anybody even knew. They seemed genuinely confused. Someone else asked if anyone had heard of a contract holder on Earth, mentioning the world of martial arts and chivalry. At the same time, the figure in the dark landscape seemed to be waiting for something. The woman casually drank her wine and said that if he was a returnee, he had a lot of potential. She added that he had missed someone earlier. The crowd went wild, each person wanting Kim Il-young for themselves. They were shouting at each other, saying that he was theirs and telling the others to get lost. They were ready to fight over him. The girl looked shocked, asking what the others had just said about nothing and narrow. She seemed confused by their words and wondered what was going on. The girl, annoyed, called them rude and told them to move. She was pushing her way through the crowd, saying that at last, they meet. The girl stated that she needed a suitable contractor who could work with her. She then told a woman to move aside, calling her a dum-dum. The girl, looking furious, told them not to call her Irek. She seemed very sensitive about that name. Hildegreen declared that she was the mother of every hero and the superior deity. She then wondered if it was a higher power that she was sensing, and then she realized it was that kid. Meanwhile, the group of men below looked at each other, unsure of what was going on. Hildegreen stated that if they knew the subject, they would be able to dive right in without hesitation. She added that the author belonged to her now. At the same time, one of the men below told the lesser gods not to dismiss them, reminding them that they were gods too. One of the men ran forward, calling the person a half-wit. He looked furious and ready to attack. One of the men said that he couldn't take it anymore and suggested that they make her pay with a pincer attack. Another man looked at him, seemingly agreeing with the plan. Hildegreen taunted them, telling them to go ahead and be cowardly. She added that it was easier to beat them that way. Below, the group of men were running towards her, ready to attack. Hildegreen didn't waste any time and attacked. The man looked completely caught off guard by the sudden attack, his eyes wide with fear. Kim Il-young felt like his head was spinning. He muttered, asking where he was. Hildegreen looked down at him and cheerfully asked if he had finally opened his eyes. She was grinning like she was really happy to see him. Kim Il-young was still trying to get his bearings, wondering where he was. He wondered if he was experiencing the legendary power he had only heard stories about. Hildegreen explained that they were somewhere among countless dimensions. She added that it was the anniversary of the founding of the heavenly land, and that this place was only allowed for today. She then asked him who he was, before quickly clarifying that she was asking about herself. Hildegreen declared that she was the mother of all heroes and a living legend. She was Hildegreen. She seemed to be thinking about something, wondering if the god of heroes was auspicious or inauspicious. Hildegreen asked the child of Earth, meaning Kim Il-young, what his name and dream were. She seemed curious. Kim Il-young wondered why she would ask that in the first place, confirming that she was talking to him. Kim Il-young knew that lies didn't work with gods of contracts. He'd rather go out with a bang. He stated that his name was Kim Il-young, and his dream was to live off his own skills in this life. Hildegreen was confused and asked what he meant by living off of life. Kim Il-young explained that he wanted to become a landlord who collected rent from adventurers every month. He was thrilled at the prospect. Hildegreen looked at him, wondering if those who were chosen by this heroic god were just going to let life walk all over them like that. Hildegreen explained that there was a catch to all of this. She said that he had to be from the world of nothingness and consultation. Kim Il-young replied to Ms. Hildegreen that there was martial arts where he was from, but there were no chivalrous individuals. He also admitted that he wasn't particularly skilled in martial arts either, just a lowly swordsman who scraped by during the day. But at night, he was a formidable warrior. At the top, Hildegreen was surprised that he was a lowly swordsman, defining it as a mercenary. She She thought that was a good thing because mercenary kings could be heroes too. But then she asked what an amphipasic group was. Kim Il-yong was standing in front of her. At the bottom, Kim Il-yong was standing in front of her, and Hildegreen was wondering what an amphipasic group was. Kim Il-yong explained that it refers to a person who tries to redistribute wealth by sneaking into other people's homes and stealing their riches and treasures beyond their walls. Hildegreen was shocked, realizing that it was just a fancy word for thief. She wondered if thief was the right word for him. Kim Il-yong confirmed that was right, realizing that maybe he was too honest. At the bottom, Hildegreen was furious, calling him a thief and asking what he was so proud of. Hildegreen was starting to panic because they had already met, so the contract was unavoidable. She realized she messed up. Because of that, she declared that she would tear him apart and fix his way of thinking to make him a hero. Kim Il-yong was confused, asking what that nonsense was supposed to mean. He pointed out that being a hero wouldn't help him get through life at all. He looked annoyed by the whole situation. Kim Il-yong asked if hero was just another word for sucker. He couldn't help it, so he declared that he would become a contractor in secret. He was floating away from Hildegreen. Kim Il-yong refused, saying that he needed a god of martial arts or a sword saint, not just a simple body transformation god. Hildegreen was completely shocked by his arrogance. Hildegreen called him a stupid, arrogant earthling, telling him to go home. She punched him hard, sending him flying away. Kim Il-yong was sent flying by the punch, and he couldn't understand why he had fallen. He wondered if he had even been hit at all. He looked around, confused. Immediately after, he was holding his neck, asking what kind of violent god would do that. Hildegreen declared that prospective adventurer Kim Il-yong's awakening was complete. Kim Il-yong was on the ground, wondering what his class was. Hildegreen pointed, showing Kim Il-yong's stats. It showed his name, level, class as Ronin, divine contract with the god of heroes, and his title, foolish and arrogant earthling, along with his strength, agility, stamina, mana, and intelligence. Kim Il-yong smirked, remarking that the little god had a way with words. He wondered if a Ronin class even existed. At the same time, some guys were overhearing the conversation, and one of them declared that it must be the only class. Kim Il-yong was surprised, wondering if another unique class had appeared. He thought he had seen a mana star, but he wondered if he was wrong. He then asked if he couldn't use a skill without mana. He checked his stats again. Kim Il-yong then realized he was wearing a pearl necklace around his spine and wondered what he could do with it, since he was the only one in his class. He seemed disappointed. The guy with the blonde hair congratulated Kim Il-yong on being the only one with the Ronin class, but then he added that his mana was terrible. Kim Il-yong just replied with a, yeah. They say that a returnee is like a lottery ticket that hasn't been scratched. At the same time, a woman with red hair was listening in the hallway. Kim Il-yong complained that he got a winning class, but the mana was terrible. The red-haired woman looked around, seemingly surprised, and then she leaned in closer to listen, curious about what was being said. Kim Il-yong wondered what was going on and if it was a mistake. He thought he should at least look at the status window. He was hoping for just a single active skill. The screen showed inactive skills and then one that was active. Kim Il-yong begged for it to be good, but then he realized that this was terrible. The status window showed that his internal work was at 10, which was really bad. Kim Il-yong was confused, wondering what was going on with his internal work. He couldn't believe it. Then suddenly, he could faintly feel something returning to him. He was sure of it. Kim Il-yong realized that this was why his mana was at 0. He thought it was great, sarcastically. He immediately opened the skills window to see what was going on. Kim Il-yong looked at the screen and was completely shocked. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Kim Il-yong was pumped. He saw all the martial artists he had been searching for in the Zhongyuan mainland right here. He could not believe it. He saw martial artists from the 3 kingdoms all the way to the top of the world. He was grinning from ear to ear. It was like opening the gates to the imperial treasury. The light from the gate was blinding. Kim Il-yong was standing in the middle of a bright light. He seemed to be getting pumped up by whatever was happening. He had been smiling, but suddenly his face dropped. Kim Il-yong asked what the hell was going on, because this sucked. Kim Il-yong realized he wouldn't be kicked out anymore for begging for martial arts lessons from martial artists. He knew more about the weaknesses of those martial artists than anyone else. He realized realized that his 7 years weren't in vain after all. Kim Il-young was smirking, ready for another round. He thought this delicious meal would be great. Kim Il-young was still sitting in the Awakener's waiting room, glowing with a blue aura. The other people nearby were whispering about him, wondering what the hell was going on with that guy. Kim Il-young was sitting there, thinking to himself, noting how slow the 3 judgment method proficiency was increasing. He was a little annoyed by this, but he didn't let it get to him. Kim Il-young knew it wasn't 0, but it was still slow and steady. He realized that he needed a higher level inner core method, and he wondered if leveling up was the answer. He was determined to acquire all the martial arts he had only dreamed of. Do-yoon Lee addressed the prospective adventurers, acknowledging that the test was tough. He mentioned that the Taichiang clan had prepared a cheering drink for them. He then asked if they had any plans for the future. Hong Hua Yan explained that their clan was offering an unbeatable deal. Someone in the background was thinking that they were jealous of her because the snobby Big 5 clans were begging her to join. They also noticed Jia around Hong Hua Yan. It seemed like everyone was interested in signing Hong Hua Yan, calling her the princess of the group and a wannabe S-rank adventurer. They heard that she had the only class with perks that leveled up, and they envied her. Meanwhile, the crowd was getting a weird vibe, wondering what was going on. The crowd was clearly trying to figure out what was happening, but one guy thought that the situation was ice cold because even the Gunsu clan officials were out of business. The guy's face showed that he was not happy with the situation. He was clearly annoyed that the Gunsu clan officials were out of business. Suddenly, they heard a voice telling everyone to pay attention and that break time was over. All prospective adventurers were being asked to report to the clearing. It was time for adventurer aptitude training to begin. They were told that only after rigorous training and education could they move on to Pangea. Do-yoon Lee explained that the aptitude test was also a time for clan leaders to reaffirm the potential of prospective adventurers. He greeted everyone, introducing himself as Do-yoon Lee of the Adventurers Association, their instructor for this aptitude training. The instructor addressed the group, saying that there was an A-list adventurer among them. He added that he could smell the sunshine from there. The instructor continued, stating that no reporters were allowed on the training ground. From that point on, it was just them adventurers. The instructor told everyone to put on the adventurer bracelets they had been given. He explained that the bracelet was proof that they were adventurers. It allowed them to translate the Pangean language and look up each other's adventurer information. He warned that adventurers without it were likely to be outsiders or killers from other countries. The instructor warned them to watch out for those people in empty dungeons and hunting grounds unless they wanted to be reported missing. He clarified that outsiders and killers weren't monsters. They were human hunters. He added that the bracelet was embedded with a passivized divine stone, so they could talk to the Covenant gods if they were lucky enough. Meanwhile, Hong Hua Yan spoke, asking if someone could hear her and thanking them for their help, promising to do their best. At the same time, the instructor wondered if he had heard that little god. Someone was getting angry about something being empty. At the same time, the instructor told them to get started with the aptitude training. He explained that the prospective adventurers had to find the right weapon from the ones in front of them. The instructor continued, explaining that weapons were an adventurer's best friend, so they should choose carefully. He added that when they were done, they could just run back to where they were. Meanwhile, Kim Il-young thought to himself that he needed a sword that fit his hands and that there was no such thing as too much. Kim Il-young realized that, unfortunately, he had to compromise with reality for now. He noticed that the center of gravity was evenly distributed. Kim Il-young thought it was okay, but he needed a few more raindrops. He confirmed the weapon numbers, the steel sword, and the rain. The instructor warned them not to lose it because the weapon they had received was now theirs. At the same time, Kim Il-young told himself not to give up. The instructor yelled at them to stay strong and proceed with determination. He added that no one should be dumb enough to drop their weapon just because things got hard, because if they did, they didn't deserve to be an adventurer. He then told them to run. One of the wizards couldn't believe they were suddenly being asked to run when they didn't even have the arms for it. She huffed, clearly annoyed. One of the guys running with a sword felt like he was gonna die. He was clearly struggling to keep up. The instructor kept yelling that this was the training that all the amazing S-class adventurers had gone through. He told them to run, saying every drop of sweat was for building their future. He then mentioned building owner Kazuha, a S-class adventurer, and told them to just wait. Everyone's morale was charged. Kim Il-young thought to himself that he was the one who started out as a beggar and ended up as a first-class citizen. A foot stomped down, declaring that he could never lose. Kim Il-young screamed, frustrated that it was so hard to make a living. He was clearly at his wit's end. Suddenly, a notification popped up, saying that a request had been generated. Kim Il-young looked at the screen, confused. He wondered if something like that even existed. The notification showed showed the request name, Road to Becoming a Hero. It also said the difficulty was the lowest possible. The screen then listed the request details. It said a hero, who was gasping for breath, was not attractive, so they had to train their stamina. As a result, Kim Il-young was thinking that the reward was way too small for something at the lowest difficulty. The request's name was displayed again, Road to Becoming a Hero. Kim Il-young wondered what was more, a hero. Kim Il-young looked at the screen and said, wow. He seemed genuinely surprised by what he was seeing. Kim Il-young thought to himself that this nobleman was still dreaming the wrong dream. He was clearly frustrated by the whole situation. Kim Il-young looked at the training request with a serious expression. He was thinking about what he should do next. The screen showed the details, running, push-ups, and sit-ups. Kim Il-young was thinking, oh God, why did you give me such a trial? He figured gathering experience points little by little was better than doing nothing, right? The screen showed he needed to do 150 reps to get a muscle strength stat of 1. Kim Il-young realized stats were really important. The details of the request were still on the screen. Kim Il-young was getting annoyed and asked himself if he really had to do this. Kim Il-young was clearly not happy about this training. He was annoyed and decided to ask what the real intention was behind it all. Kim Il-young looked totally confused and asked Ms. Hildegreen what this was all about. He looked like he had no idea what was happening. The bracelet glowed as Kim Il-young thought to himself that this goddess was really persistent. He wondered if this was just her style as a brat. The screen showed the title of the request, The Second Path to Becoming a Hero. It also showed his achievements, like running 6,800 out of 7,000 meters and doing 290 out of 300 push-ups. He was so close to finishing. Kim Il-young kept running, but he felt like he was about to die. He was pushing himself to the limit. Even after finishing the sprinting exercise, Kim Il-young kept training. He didn't even know how to rest after completing the first request, so he just kept running. Kim Il-young felt like his body was completely numb. He couldn't even scream to stop himself. He was so tired. He felt like he was about to die right there. But the young master kept running and running, pushing through the pain. He finally completed the 7,000 meters. Kim Il-young kept running, gasping for air. He was pushing himself way too hard. It turns out that in martial arts, there's a big secret about passing on skills. People don't just share them. But here, martial arts were spread like a buffet under the name of skills. The protagonist realized this was an incredible chance to break free from being weak. The young master slammed his hands on the ground, pushing himself up with a grunt. He asked himself how he could rest with that in mind, clearly frustrated with his limits. He remembered the instructor's words echoing in his head. He had said that training never betrays you, and the more you sweat, the stronger you become. Kim Il-young kept pushing himself, doing push-ups. He counted out loud, 1, 2, 3. His body was shaking, but he refused to stop, and with each push-up, more sweat poured off him, hitting the ground. Every single drop, he knew, was building his future. Kim Il-young gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain. He forced out another rep, yelling 4 as he struggled to complete it. Someone noticed Il-young working so hard. He wondered why that person was acting like that. The others started talking about him, laughing at how he had to rely on his body because he didn't have any mana. They thought it was stupid, wondering how he could become an adventurer without skills. Kim Il-young ignored the haters and kept doing his push-ups. He was determined to get stronger his way. He gritted his teeth, sweat dripping from his face. He didn't care if they laughed. He was going to go his own way. He pushed himself to 10. At the same time, someone explained that it was just a training period and they couldn't fight monsters yet. Because of that, all the aspiring adventurers were stuck at level 1. Kim Il-young completed the second request on the path to becoming a hero. He got 150 experience points and a stamina boost. He had leveled up to level 4, and he was still pushing himself to the limit. He was done, and he thanked Ms. Hildegreen. He was really grateful for the help. Kim Il-young raised his arms in victory, clearly proud of himself for pushing through. He was feeling the rush of the level up. Someone told him that he was doing great, but then told him to be quiet. He looked around, confused about who was talking to him. Kim Il-young turned to Ms. Hildegreen, asking if she could hear him. He even called her a little god, wondering if she would answer. Kim Il-young looked at the bracelet on his wrist. He thought to himself that the goddess had been around for a long time. He then looked around at the ceiling. He wondered where all the taxes went and what was up with the unsettling menu. The cafeteria was packed with people. Someone in the crowd commented that the 3 food police officers were there. A man was eating, but he complained that he was so hungry that he felt like he could chew and swallow iron bars. He looked absolutely famished. A group of people sat around a table. One of them said that he was restless to make friends with the famous prospective adventurer. Someone said that it was already too late for that guy over there. He suggested they should go to Dokgodai. Kim Il-young was getting ready for a good meal. He looked forward to eating well. The man's expression was unreadable. It was hard to know what he was thinking. Someone had sent a message asking why they hadn't heard anything after the awakening test. The sender said they had forgotten and apologized. At the same time, someone else was annoyed that the person had forgotten to report to the teacher. The guy was looking at his phone, but he remembered something else. He recalled that someone had promised to help him cram for his studies, but he doubted it. Someone was talking about the unique class being here. At the same time, someone else was texting, saying that they were surviving on kimchi and ramen every day. They clearly needed the adventurer's help. The person texted that they desperately needed the adventurer's help. They sent their adventurer bank number, but then said their mana was 0. They seemed confused and accused the other person of lying. The guy looked at his phone in shock. He said it was true that his mana was 0. He was clearly confused by what was happening. He was still staring at his phone, trying to figure out what was going on, and immediately a text came in asking if he was okay, showing concern for his well-being. Hwa-yeon stood in front of a seated man and called out to him, asking if he was there. She seemed to be looking for him. Someone was thinking about Hwa-yeon. It seemed like they were trying to remember who she was, and immediately someone else chimed in, saying that she was the super rookie of this year's class. It seemed like they were trying to remind the person who she was. The person wondered what the sensational rookie wanted from him. He also questioned why she was calling him senior. Kim Il-young was still staring at his phone, deep in thought. He seemed to be processing the information he was receiving. He noticed that the gorgeous person named Hwa-yeon was talking to him, but then he paused, realizing he didn't know who she was. Kim Il-young started typing a message. He figured a beautiful woman was more important than his buddy right now. He thought that up close. She was really pretty. He bet she'd made a lot of men cry. Hwa-yeon asked if he was okay, because she saw him training like a monster earlier. She also kept calling him senior. Kim Il-young asked why she kept calling him senior. He told her that he didn't know any junior like her, and wanted to know why she had been watching him. Hwa-yeon said she knew he was a senior. She added that she didn't know him, but he knew her. Hwa-yeon told him that they were in the same department. She explained that she also studied material science and engineering. Well, the monster material science department now, she corrected. Kim Il-young was then asked if he was the one who had returned to the classroom before her. He seemed a bit confused by her question. Hwa-yeon insisted that he remember her. She pointed out that they had even met at orientation. She was really trying to get him to remember. She looked at him expectantly, waiting for some sign of recognition. The young lady really seemed to want him to remember her. She couldn't believe he didn't remember. She asked again, just to be sure, if he really didn't remember her. Kim Il-young remembered his past. If it was something from his college days, it was from 7 years ago for him. Even that memory was clouded by his intense martial arts training. He was straining to remember anything from that time. Kim Il-young admitted that he really didn't remember her at all. He was clearly confused and asked how she even knew who he was. He was trying to piece together what was happening. Hwa-yeon smiled, revealing that he wasn't the only one who had returned. She explained that he was a returnee too, a senior, as she called him. She seemed amused by his confusion. Hwa-yeon continued, explaining that the department group chat had been very noisy because of him. She said that there was no way she couldn't know who he was. She seemed to think it was obvious. Turns out it wasn't a surprise, considering 2 reincarnated students came from the same department. It was quite the coincidence, really. The situation was starting to make sense. Hwa-yeon revealed that there had been rumors about a senior high school student coming back. She seemed to be enjoying this bit of gossip. She continued, explaining that the senior had done a strange dance during a chess competition. She admitted that she couldn't forget his face after that. It was a flashback to a time when Kim Il-young was wearing a tiger suit. He was dancing with his arms raised, clearly not embarrassed at the time, and immediately Kim Il-young remembered. He realized it was his shameful history from 7 years ago. He was starting to regret his past actions. Meanwhile, Kim Il-young looked like he was in pain. Kim Il-young exclaimed that he almost forgot about what happened 7 years ago. Hwa-yeon asked if he had come back after all those years, clearly amused by his reaction. Hwa-yeon smirked, saying that it was no wonder Kim Il-young couldn't remember anything. She pointed out that she had only been back for a year. She seemed to be enjoying his confusion. Hwa-yeon continued, telling Kim Il-young that he didn't have to go around networking like the others. She smiled warmly, trying to make him feel at ease. Hwa-yeon leaned in slightly, suggesting that he just call her Hwa-yeon comfortably. She seemed to be trying to build a friendly relationship with him. She added that she found it more fun fun talking to her senior. She smiled, making it clear that she was interested in continuing their conversation. Meanwhile, another guy watched them from across the room, lost in thought. He seemed to be calculating something, his expression unreadable. Someone suddenly exclaimed, recognizing Hua Yan and saying it was nice to see her again. The man with red hair asked Kim Il-yong who he was. He mentioned that they had seen each other with Hua Yan at the clan gathering, pointing out that Kim Il-yong was sitting at the table next to her. The man with red hair smiled sheepishly and admitted that he had a bad memory and didn't remember. Hua Yan looked annoyed and muttered that she hated it when people suddenly started talking to her. The man with red hair then asked if the two knew each other, since they seemed to be talking so joyfully. Hua Yan explained that they were senior-junior colleagues from university. The man with the red hair called them over, saying that they weren't strangers anymore. He smiled, happy to see people getting along. Two people seemed happy to be included and nodded in agreement. They looked forward to meeting new people. The first guy introduced himself as Lee Jin-ho from the Ranger class. The young lady next to him said she was Kim Mi-na from the Swordsman class. Someone said it was an honor to meet the younger sister of that famous swordmaster. The group seemed genuinely impressed. Hua Yan smiled, but she said that the situation was still awkward. She didn't seem to enjoy the attention. An announcement called the aspiring adventurers to attention. It told everyone that lunchtime was over. The announcement said to gather at Training Ground 11 for the next training, and right after the announcement, someone said they'd go first. Hua Yan said she would go first. She seemed a little nervous, but also excited to get started. But then, someone called out, stopping her. They yelled for Miss Hua Yan to wait a minute. Hua Yan was suddenly sent flying. The other trainees watched, completely surprised by what just happened. The red-haired trainee watched Hua Yan disappear and commented that she was gone like the wind. The others around him seemed equally surprised by her sudden departure. The red-haired trainee was bummed that Hua Yan left so quickly and asked if anyone managed to get her number. Someone replied with a simple no. Meanwhile, someone was walking away from the group. It wasn't clear who it was or where they were going. As the man walked away, the red-haired trainee changed the subject. He asked if anyone wanted to join him for training, saying that training was the only way to survive. The man glanced back with a slight smile, wondering if there would be another mission this time. He seemed eager to get started. The group started moving forward, their footsteps echoing in the training area. The sounds of everyone walking together filled the air. The instructor yelled, asking if everyone had eaten well before coming. The students responded with a loud, "Yes!" Another trainee shouted back, confirming that he was ready to go. The instructor grinned, telling them to digest their food now, because this training involved a mock dungeon. He looked like he was enjoying this. The instructor explained that ugly goblins were waiting for them inside the dungeon. He quickly added that it wasn't that dangerous, trying to reassure them. The instructor told the group that the enemies they were about to face were tough, but he added that they were perfect to show off the skills they had been training. The instructor then revealed that they would be fighting a training chimera. The chimera was made from the bodies of mutated slimes and goblins, which sounded pretty nasty. The instructor also warned them that the goblins had weak attacks, but strong defense. He explained that this was due to hardening magic on their skin. The goblins looked ready to fight. They were all crouched down, waiting for the signal to attack. Kim Il-yong was excited. He said he was already feeling restless and wanted to test the martial arts he had been practicing. Kim Il-yong smirked. He had registered some of the approved third-rate martial arts as skills, ready to level up. The screen showed his skills: triple blade technique at 4th rank, 6 harmony fist at 2nd rank, wind blade technique at 1st rank, triple heart technique at 2nd rank, and 5 element step at 1st rank. Not bad for a beginner. The instructor announced that the training would be done by forming a party autonomously. He looked pretty serious about it. Kim Il-yong looked surprised. He asked why he was so shocked. Because hunting in Pangaea was usually done in parties or clans. He realized they needed to experience group battles firsthand. He thought they would form their own group and proceed with the training, comparing it to a college group project. The instructor continued to explain the rules. The trainees listened carefully, trying to understand what was expected of them in this timed challenge. The instructor then announced that the training would be done in time attack mode. He added that the results would be visible to all clan members. The instructor gave them a knowing smile. He asked if they knew what they needed to do to impress impress everyone. Kim Il-young looked annoyed. He realized the faceless ones were grouping together, leaving him out. Kim Il-young cursed under his breath. He knew this would happen, and he regretted not working harder to build relationships with the other trainees. Hong Hua-yan spotted Kim Il-young in the crowd. She thought to herself that she had found the right person. Hong Hua-yan walked up to Kim Il-young and asked him if he wanted to team up with her. Kim Il-young looked surprised by the sudden invitation. Hong Hua-yan looked annoyed that Kim Il-young wasn't speaking properly. She told him not to skip words like that. Kim Il-young tried to recover smoothly, asking if they could have a party together. He was trying his best to sound like he knew what he was doing. Hong Hua-yan smiled, noticing his discomfort. She teased him, saying that he must hate this, and that his face was burning up. Hong Hua-yan seemed a little offended, asking if he disliked her that much, that he would reject her with just one look. Kim Il-young denied it immediately, saying that wasn't the reason at all. He looked a little nervous, trying to explain himself. Hong Hua-yan then asked if he would do it, looking at him with an expectant expression. She was waiting for his answer. Hong Hua-yan looked like she was thinking hard, but then Kim Il-young spoke up, declaring confidently that there was nothing he couldn't do. He was trying to sound cool. Hong Hua-yan smiled, saying, "All right, let's do it together." Kim Il-young then asked if he should gather people for the party, ready to get started. Kim Il-young thought to himself that with Hong Hua-yan on his side, recruiting people was easy. He shouted out, asking who wanted to party with him, and a bunch of people raised their hands immediately. Hong Hua-yan smiled, telling everyone not to fight. She seemed to be trying to ease the tension in the group. Someone in the crowd shouted to everyone, telling them to do their best. They sounded really enthusiastic. Another man raised his fist, declaring to Kang Baek-chul that he would repay his kindness with his best efforts. He looked really determined. Kim Oh-yeon then spoke up, introducing himself and mentioning that he was an assassin class. He seemed eager to get started. The group started discussing their positions for efficient hunting, but Kim Oh-yeon thought to himself that it was all kind of ridiculous. Kang Baek-chul would take the lead, while Lee Jin-ho and Kim Mi-na would bring up the rear. Kim Oh-yeon and someone else would take the center. At the same time, Hong Hua-yeon stared intently, planning their strategy. A man smiled, saying that he liked how they were expressing their interest. He seemed really pleased with their enthusiasm. Another man smiled, saying that it was fitting for a prestigious adventurer family. He seemed really impressed. A man smiled, commenting that she had analyzed everything in an instant and given sharp orders. He seemed impressed by her quick thinking. Hong Hua-yeon asked the young master where he wanted to stand. He replied that he didn't care. Anywhere was fine with him. He looked completely indifferent. The guy with the dark hair was clearly annoyed. He thought it didn't matter where the young master stood because he didn't even have any mana. He told the MC to please not disturb them and just stay out of the way. The man declared that he would stand guard with Mr. Kang. He added that his younger brother was also on the list, sounding a bit protective. Someone in the group asked if the young master was nervous. The group was gathered in what looked like the entrance to a cave, ready to start. The young master replied that he was okay, trying to sound confident. He then declared that they should all go, ready to face whatever was ahead. And just like that, a portal opened before them, swirling with energy. It was time to begin their adventure. The group moved forward into the dungeon, ready for whatever was ahead. Kim Il-young took the lead, holding his sword and shield, with the others following close behind. Kim Il-young turned back and declared that they would do their best and become the shield of the party. But to himself, he thought that this was so annoying. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing through the dungeon. The silence was heavy, creating a tense atmosphere. Suddenly, Kim Il-young stopped the group. He announced that he sensed something ahead, looking concerned. Kim Il-young, preparing for a fight, asked how many enemies were out there. He looked serious, ready to protect his group. Kim Il-young was trying to figure out how many enemies were coming. He muttered to himself, wondering if there were 2, 4, or even more than 6. He focused his energy, his eyes glowing with a fierce light. He was ready for whatever was about to come. The air crackled with anticipation. Kim Il-young, seeing the enemies approach, shouted a warning. He yelled that they were coming. One of the other trainees looked absolutely terrified. He took a step back, fear written all over his face. The monsters were closing in. One of them screamed as it lunged forward, ready to attack. The goblins, a nasty-looking bunch, were ready to fight. Their leader shouted for everyone to prepare for the attack. One of the trainees wasn't going to wait and see what happened. He activated a skill, shouting that he was going to provoke the enemy. The trainee looked around, his eyes widening in disbelief. He realized there were goblins in the back too, and not just a few. Panic started to set in. It was clear they were completely surrounded by the monsters. It was a really bad situation. The goblins didn't waste any time and charged forward, looking like they wanted to tear everyone apart. They were moving fast and looked really angry. The rookies started to panic, realizing they didn't have any real combat experience. They were screaming and looked like they were about to run away. At the same time, Manhwa also looked surprised, like she wasn't ready for this kind of fight. It was clear this was her first time being this close to the action. Turns out, Manhwa was also taken aback because this was her first time in close combat. She was clearly not expecting it to be this intense. Meanwhile, one of the goblins was attacking with a crazy look in its eyes. It looked like it was about to hit someone. The others thought the association guys should hold back a little. The trainees were wondering if the instructor was trying to push them too hard. Turns out, the goblins were protected by some kind of magic, and their attacks weren't doing anything. The goblins were relentless, and one of the guys was getting attacked up close. At the same time, Manhwa was trying to blast the goblins with her magic, hoping to break through their defenses. The goblin was still attacking the man, and he looked like he was in serious trouble. He was screaming, trying to fight back, but the goblin was too strong. The goblins kept attacking, and the trainees were getting pushed back. It was clear that their skills weren't working well against the goblins. Manhwa looked really stressed out, like she couldn't handle the pressure. She was frustrated that she couldn't even use her abilities properly, because she was so tense. Kim Il-young was starting to worry. He realized that at this rate, they were going to get wiped out. Suddenly, a system message popped up. Mission alert. The mission name was Proof of a Hero, and the details said, Crisis is the stage for heroes. Let's harvest the skulls of all the goblins. All right, our hero grinned, finally getting a mission he could sink his teeth into. It was time to get to work. Our hero was pumped. He thought to himself that he had been waiting for this. He knew this was his specialty, martial arts and fighting dogs. He had absolute confidence in his skills. Kim Il-young could feel it. He could feel the flow of his inner energy coursing through him. His muscles were reacting quickly, ready for anything that came his way. He realized his strength was being concentrated, building up for something big. Kim Il-young swung his sword, a purple energy trail following the blade. He was moving with incredible speed, ready to cut down whatever was in his path. The sword cutting through the air, the purple energy intensifying with each swing. The power behind it was undeniable. At the same time, the goblin screamed, clearly terrified. Kim Il-young realized there was no time to activate his skill. Meanwhile, he thought that in martial arts, everything should be instinctive. His eyes narrowed, focusing all his energy. He reassured himself that his body remembered what to do. The young master took a step forward with his left foot, beginning the form of the three-sword technique. Kim Il-young lowered his head, focusing his energy. The purple aura around him intensified, ready to explode. He slashed his sword, cutting through the goblin with ease. The goblin could only make a weird noise as it was cut down. Kim Il-young shouted that he could do all of this without any skills. He was feeling pretty confident. Manhwa looked completely shocked. She wondered how he could do that without any skills. Kim Il-young stood tall, surrounded by the goblins he had just defeated. Manhwa could only watch in disbelief. Kim Il-young didn't waste any time. He moved with blinding speed and slashed at the goblin. The goblin screamed, knowing it was about to be cut down. The goblin screamed as Kim Il-young's blade came down on him. He could only shout as the blade approached. The sword cut through the goblin's flesh with ease. It didn't even have time to scream before it was cut down. Kim Il-young looked back with a smile, clearly enjoying himself. He was ready for the next fight. He thought about the feeling he got when he defeated an enemy. It was a familiar sensation. He remembered the feeling of cutting through flesh. It was something he had done many times. The sword sliced through the goblin, and he could feel the resistance as it cut through bone. It was an oddly satisfying feeling. Manhwa watched the fight, her eyes wide with surprise. She couldn't believe how easily he was taking down the goblins. The goblin's head went flying, landing on the ground with a thud. The attack was brutal and efficient. The feeling of the blade cutting through flesh and bone was familiar to him. It felt almost intimate. A wide smile spread across Kim Il-young's face. He wondered if he had truly returned as a martial artist. One of the trainees looked at Manhwa asking what that had been just now. The woman's eyes were wide with disbelief at the power she had just witnessed. Manhwa was stunned. She couldn't believe that someone could cut down a hardened goblin so easily. She had never seen anything like it. Our hero didn't stop to celebrate. He kept moving forward, his sword ready for the next attack. He was completely focused on the mission. The remaining goblins were terrified. They screamed the name Kiyek as they saw him coming closer, clearly recognizing the threat. Someone shouted, asking where he was running away to. They added that even if he was going to leave, he couldn't just run off like that. Kim Il-yong screamed as he fought. He looked absolutely furious, ready to tear through anything in his path. The goblins got hit with a powerful strike. The force of the blow was enough to cut them down instantly. The young master advanced, remembering what his older brother had told him. He needed to stay calm, no matter what. Hong Hua-yan watched with wide eyes. She was clearly shocked by the scene unfolding before her. But as soon as they faced the goblins, everything went completely crazy. The situation was spiraling out of control fast. The guy was completely stunned, realizing that the young master had sliced the petrified goblin into 3 pieces. He couldn't believe that someone with no mana at level 1 could pull off something like that. Meanwhile, another man was looking with a grin, wondering where the senior was. The guy was smiling, wondering how the hero could be so calm like that. He seemed to be enjoying the show. He was still trying to figure out how the young master could be so calm. Kim Il-yong was still fighting goblins, moving with incredible speed. He was enjoying himself. The man was completely confused, wondering what the heck was going on. He couldn't understand what he was seeing. Someone was talking about Kim Oh-yeon, asking if he wasn't a loser, and if this was the only class like that. It sounded like they were trying to figure something out. The guys watching the fight looked completely stunned. They just couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their faces showed pure disbelief. Someone shouted that this was so unfair. They seemed really upset about something. The person speaking commented that there was no showmanship or pretense in the trajectory of the sword, comparing it to a machine. It was like they were analyzing the young master's fighting style. They continued, saying that he just takes the enemy's life. They seemed to be impressed by his efficiency. The sword moved with incredible speed, a blur of steel. Because of that, it was clear that he fought with the most efficient movements. The goblin didn't even have time to react before the blade cut through it. The young master had been fighting like this for 7 years. The young master grinned as he cut down another goblin. He was enjoying this way too much. Someone watching the fight was completely shocked by what they were seeing. They couldn't help but wonder what the heck he had gone through to become so skilled. The protagonist shouted as he continued his assault on the goblins. He was in his element, completely focused on the fight. The goblin screamed as the sword came down on it. It didn't understand how it was being overwhelmed so easily. At that moment, someone recognized the style. It was the most efficient, practical swordsmanship. The girl's eyes widened as she watched the fight. She thought it was just like her brother. She admitted that she wasn't as skilled as her older brother, who was a sword master. He was on a completely different level. The young master continued to cut down the goblins with ease. The red-haired girl could only watch in amazement at his overwhelming power. The young master felt a surge of confidence. He realized that his speed was still top-notch, even when it came to swordsmanship. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl was deep in thought. She was remembering that the senior had only awakened as an adventurer a few days ago. The protagonist kept his focus, ignoring the girl's thoughts. He knew he had to keep moving if he wanted to level up. She couldn't help but wonder what was going on. She questioned what exactly the senior's identity really was. Hong Hua-yan looked at her hand, trying to figure out the situation. She was clearly confused by the young master's power. She thought to herself that she hadn't expected much help. She admitted that they had only formed a party because he was a friend of Sun Chang, who she had a personal connection with. The god of harvest, Hildegreen, may be childish, but the god of harvest whispers that the girl is also good at calculations. She also has sharp eyes for people. The god of harvest quietly murmured that there might be some hidden benefits to the situation. The girl's eyes widened as she considered this. She wondered what kind of benefit could make up for 0 mana. What reward could possibly compensate for that? Kim Il-yong moved like a blur, slashing at the goblins with incredible speed. The purple energy of his blade cut through the air, making short work of the monsters, and immediately a voice echoed in the air, calling him an adventurer with boundless potential. It was like the system itself was acknowledging his strength. The voice continued, calling him a hidden gem. It was clear that someone or something was watching him very closely. Then the voice declared that the first one to pick him up would become the owner. It was a strange way to describe a person, but it seemed to fit the situation. Hong Hua-yan smiled to herself, thinking that her brother always complained he didn't have clan members good enough to use. She seemed to have an idea. Hong Hua-yan was getting excited, thinking she might have found the perfect person for their clan. She thought to herself that she might have found someone. She continued, believing that if they succeeded in recruiting him, their clan would be a total success. The only problem was figuring out how to persuade their senior members. The system seemed to be reacting to his performance, and the text implied that if the god of harvest wanted him that badly, Hong Hua-yan would even use her own body to persuade him with a smile. She was clearly very motivated, but someone immediately shot down her idea, saying, what was she even talking about? No matter how much they wanted to recruit him, it wasn't going to be that easy. The god of harvest was laughing heartily. Apparently the joke landed way better than expected, and the reaction seemed suspiciously good. Manhwa was blushing a little, saying, "Oh my, really?" She seemed to be taking the joke a bit too seriously. Outside the association's viewing room, everything was quiet. The room was empty and waiting for something to happen. At the same time, some people were talking about the returnees. One of them asked if they could expect a new record this time, but the other guy immediately shut him down. The guy stated that there wouldn't be any new records because they had set the training difficulty level too high. They were clearly not expecting much from this group. The text clearly states who's in charge: Director Kim Ma-young. The man asked what the difficulty level was and why it was suddenly changed. He looked a little worried. The text says that Pangea is a bit complicated these days. The man explained that because of his own inner conflicts and the presence of outsiders, he had to train even harder this term. He seemed determined to raise the bar. The text declared that if you're an adventurer, you have to overcome all challenges with perseverance. It was a pretty standard motivational speech. The woman repeated the word perseverance to herself, clearly thinking about the weight of that statement. She seemed to be considering the implications of what was just said. The man turned to Mr. John, confidently saying that Manhwa's party would definitely be the fastest. He added that even manager Kim wouldn't dare to bet against them. The man went on, explaining that the person in question had received great teachings from their older brother. He also mentioned that their lineage was excellent, but another man questioned that statement, pointing out that the lineage hadn't actually been proven yet. He seemed skeptical about the claims. Someone else chimed in, arguing that it had been proven in Pangea. He explained that children born to magicians often showed talent in magic themselves. Someone commented that these days, there were many cases where adventurers were connected because of stories like this. It seemed like they were discussing how people find common ground in this new world. The woman looked at the man beside her and said that the world had become strange as she thought about lineage. She didn't seem to believe it was that important. The door to the dungeon started to shake violently. Cracks appeared around the edges, hinting at something powerful about to come through. A woman shouted that they were coming out. Everyone was focused on the door, waiting to see who or what would emerge. Finally, the doors swung open, revealing the exit from the dungeon. The tension in the air was thick as everyone waited to see who had made it through. Someone was breathing heavily after the fight. They were clearly exhausted. The adventurers were covered in battle marks and dirt, but they had made it through. One of the people watching commented that lineage was a real thing. He seemed impressed by what he had just witnessed. The general manager told them to record everything. They needed to digitize the footage and send it to headquarters. Someone pointed out that the time was 9 minutes and 56 seconds, asking if that was a new record. They seemed impressed by the speed. The people watching were surprised. They asked if the association hadn't raised the difficulty level already. They were shocked that someone could clear it so fast. One of the guys scoffed, saying that they even had to carry that worthless baggage. He didn't seem happy about it. The group was still in disbelief. They pointed out that she had cleared the dungeon in under 10 minutes without using any mana. It was almost impossible. The general manager exclaimed that they had to recruit that woman no matter what. He was clearly impressed by her skills. Someone else agreed completely. He added that he would call the accounting team and increase the recruitment budget. They were determined to get her on their team. Kim Il-yong stood there, covered in battle marks, still gripping his sword tightly. He looked like he had been through hell, but he seemed completely unfazed by it all. The person watching the fight said that the guy's moral integrity was a mess. She wondered who he even was. Someone was doing pull-ups, clearly struggling with each rep. He was huffing and puffing, trying to push himself. Someone told the senior to avoid making strange noises. He sounded annoyed. The guy doing pull-ups complained that the sound was irritating. He said it sounded like someone was taking a dump, which made the whole situation even more awkward. Manhwa was catching her breath, clearly exhausted from the fight. She looked like she had used a lot of energy. Kim Il-yong looked down, lost in thought. He seemed to be considering his next move. Suddenly, an explosion of energy erupted. It was like something was being unleashed. Kim Il-yong moved with blinding speed, his swords flashing. The air crackled with energy as he attacked. A system window popped up, showing that his triple sword technique had reached the 6th stage at 16%. He was getting stronger fast. Kim Il-yong was smiling, thinking about how he had slaughtered goblins in the mock dungeon without leaving any trace. He was pretty satisfied with his performance. Turns out, his martial arts level had noticeably increased. He was really happy about that. Kim Il-yong looked down at his sword, knowing there was no substitute for actual combat training. He knew he needed to keep pushing himself. He knew that there was no substitute for actual combat training. He needed to keep pushing himself himself to get stronger. Kim Il-yong decided to double-check all his supplies. He wanted to make sure he was ready for anything. He was taking his time, making sure he did everything just right. He was moving slowly, but with absolute certainty. The system chimed in, letting him know he had nailed the move perfectly. His skill level was even higher than expected. Kim Il-yong looked surprised by the system's feedback. He hadn't expected such a good result so quickly. He was confident it wouldn't take too long to get back to his peak condition. At the same time, the RPG screen showed Triple Sword Technique, 7th form, 1%. Kim Il-yong smirked, realizing he could restore his cultivation level pretty quickly at this rate. He was definitely on the right track. Kim Il-yong was getting excited, realizing he might even reach the peak of his dreams. He thought about how he was addicted to getting stronger, and it looked like he'd finally achieve it back on Earth. He smirked, thinking martial arts was the only drug approved by the government. He was sure he made the right choice, coming back to Earth and becoming an adventurer. He looked incredibly confident. Hung Hwayan asked if he wasn't exhausted from training so hard. She pointed out that he might not realize it, but his hands were completely worn out. She seemed concerned. Kim Il-yong told her it was okay. He explained that he was going back to the hands he used to know, looking at his own hands with determination. He added that he was talking about the hands of the hermit. Then, he wondered if the girl even trained at all, looking at her with a curious expression. Someone was complaining that she had been hanging around him ever since the mock dungeon. He sounded pretty annoyed. He wondered if the other trainees were giving her the cold shoulder. He looked at the two with a concerned expression. Hong Hwa-yan asked the senior if they could have a serious talk when he was done training. She looked serious, her red eyes focused. Hong Hwa-yan added that she wouldn't drag it out for long. She gave a small smile, trying to reassure him. He thought to himself that a serious conversation with a cute college girl would usually have him over the moon. He seemed conflicted. Kim Il-yong looked down with a smirk, refusing her request outright. He seemed determined to do things his way, no matter what. He thought to himself that it was time to train like crazy. He didn't have any time to waste on anything else. Kim Il-yong told her that there was still a lot of training left to do. He was focused on getting stronger. Hong Hwa-yan sighed, looking a little disappointed. She said that she understood. Hong Hwa-yan asked him to let her know when he had some free time. Kim Il-yong just looked away, clearly not interested at the moment. Kim Il-yong thought to himself that she was really getting on his nerves in many ways. He didn't seem to appreciate the constant attention. Kim Il-yong knew he couldn't waste this moment carrying Yahello on his back. He had to focus on his own training and get stronger. The young master planned to train the wind technique, fist technique, and inner power technique. He knew that focusing on only one skill was a foolish act. Kim Il-yong started practicing his wind technique, moving with incredible speed. He was determined to master it. Suddenly, a notification popped up. Proficiency in the wind technique had increased. He was making progress faster than he expected. The young master continued to train, pushing himself to improve his skills. He saw that his wind technique was now at first stage, 15%. He was really happy with his progress and kept pushing himself. He thought to himself that he needed more and more training. Kim Il-yong smirked, ready and motivated to keep going. He knew he had to keep training to get stronger. He was determined to make the most of his unique class and its special benefits. The protagonist knew he couldn't afford to rest if he wanted to get stronger. The boy couldn't help but feel amazed by his good fortune. He thought Hildegreen might be an even more amazing god than he realized, giving him this chance. The hero god clicked her tongue, asking if he was just now figuring things out. Kim Il-yong looked up, a smile forming on his face as he asked if it was Hildegreen. The hero god simply nodded in response, confirming his suspicions. Kim Il-yong was still smiling, but he was also curious. At the same time, the hero god explained that it was because of the power of the gemstone on his bracelet. Kim Il-yong realized that she wasn't as all-knowing as he had assumed. He added that she could get angry like a human too, which he found interesting. Kim Il-yong looked at her, asking if she was completely angry now. He seemed to be pushing her buttons on purpose. The hero god exhaled through her nose, asking who was angry. She was trying to keep her cool, but it wasn't working. Kim Il-yong looked up again, and he declared that he had another question to ask. He was clearly enjoying this back and forth. The young master was smiling as he asked if the requests he sometimes saw were given by Hildegreen. He wanted to know how much control she really had. The hero god explained that her will was reflected to some extent, but most of the requests were based on unseen providence. She seemed a little annoyed to have to explain this. Kim Il-yong was ready to fight. He held his sword, and purple energy glowed around him, showing he was serious. He was thinking about what the hero god had said. He realized that if her will was reflected to some extent, Kim Il-yong asked if there were any easy requests where he could just swim and walk around. He wanted to find something something with low difficulty but high rewards, and he was smiling mischievously as he asked. The hero god firmly shook her head, denying his request. She explained that it was beyond her abilities to create something like that. Kim Il-yong was disappointed. He wondered if it was impossible to take advantage of her like that, and he seemed a little bummed out. Kim Il-yong looked down, thinking about what he should do. He seemed to be weighing his options, and he had a serious look on his face. The hero god clicked her tongue, annoyed by his attitude. She told him that heroes shouldn't only look for the easy way out. The hero god continued, telling him to become a hero who overcomes hardship and adversity. She was trying to inspire him. Kim Il-yong looked up, a sly smile on his face. He said that being a hero only made you suffer, and it wasn't worth it. He added that these days, villains were the ones who ate well and lived the good life. He seemed to be serious about his point. A man wearing a suit and sunglasses walked forward, a small smile on his face. He seemed confident, like he knew something others didn't. The man in the suit taunted that the hero should just eat their dust. He seemed to enjoy putting others down. Kim Il-yong smiled, thinking that ultimately it was power that moved the world. He seemed to be plotting something. He continued, thinking that to him, that power was martial arts. He was excited about the prospect of using his skills. Kim Il-yong looked up, his sword at the ready. He was determined to show everyone the true power of martial arts. The guy was saying that whether someone is a hero or not, power is everything in the world. He continued by saying that people should go ahead and send him requests and bring on the challenges. Kim Il-yong was smiling, looking pretty confident. He seemed ready for anything. The hero god sighed, wondering why she ended up with such a client. She seemed a little annoyed. She held her head, looking like she was dealing with a massive headache. Having Kim Il-yong as a client was proving to be a lot more trouble than she thought. The voice echoed, announcing that it was the last training session. It was hard to say goodbye to the sunshine, the voice added, sounding a little sad. Another voice chimed in, simply saying, "It's sad." It seemed like they were really going to miss this. The first voice said that they were soon leaving Earth, but the second voice immediately warned that there was a final gate standing in their way. The trainees looked up at the man in the suit, all of them curious. One of them asked what exactly the final gate was. The voice boomed out, explaining that anyone who wanted to venture into Pangea had to face something. The instructor raised his voice, making sure everyone heard him clearly. He announced that they all had to pass through a place called the Dungeon of Proof. The instructor's voice echoed, emphasizing the importance of this final challenge. It seemed like this Dungeon of Proof was no joke. Kim Il-yong stared ahead, his expression unreadable. He was probably wondering what this Dungeon of Proof was all about. Kim Il-yong repeated the words Dungeon of Proof to himself, curious. He had no idea what to expect. So, the instructor was explaining that the Dungeon of Proof was in some kind of neutral dimension, not part of Earth or Pangea. It was also implied that some people can adapt to this new world faster because of something called the benevolent nature of Mother Earth. The instructor continued, saying this so-called tutorial dungeon was made to teach adventurers to be careful. Kim Il-yong looked concerned, probably realizing this wasn't going to be a walk in the park. The instructor's expression turned serious. He warned that there would be real monsters in there, monsters that actually wanted to kill and eat them. He challenged anyone who was scared to back off now, because this was a life or death profession. The instructor raised his voice, making sure everyone understood that only prospective adventurers could enter this Dungeon of Proof. He added that they would all be watching. The instructor reminded them that all their actions would be monitored in real time by clan officials. One of the adventurers thought to himself that this was a real-time assessment, which made him nervous because one mistake could get him disqualified. The instructor finished by saying they were lending them magical-grade armor for safety, so they should give it their all. The instructor kept talking, saying it was a relief to have a safety device, but he quickly corrected himself, clarifying that they were just borrowing the armor, and losing it would mean owing a lot of money. He then told them to hurry up and pick out the right magic-grade armor. Everyone started looking at the armor, trying to figure out what to pick. The armors looked old and worn, but they were probably better than nothing. One of the trainees asked the instructor if there was armor that gave just enough protection without being too bulky, like cloth armor. He seemed to be prioritizing mobility over defense. The instructor, looking annoyed, realized it was the same guy from before. He told him to just pick one from there. The trainee thought to himself that he had to compromise with reality again. The trainee decided he would get this one. The system window showed the armor was sturdy boiled leather with a magic defense of 11 and durability of 98/110 with no special effects. The instructor yelled, asking if everyone had picked their armor. He didn't wait for an answer, immediately declaring it was time for them to prove themselves. He continued, telling them to prove they were worthy adventurers adventurers. He welcomed them to a world full of life and death, urging them to break out of their shells and be reborn. The light pulsed as the instructor's words echoed. He was trying to hype them up for the dangers ahead, hoping they wouldn't chicken out. One of the guys turned to Jin, asking if they were really going in without an instructor. He pointed out that there was a real monster inside, clearly nervous about the whole thing. Jin smirked, saying that whether it was Murim or Pangea, the only thing that had changed was the stage. He was confident that he could handle whatever came their way. A bright light filled the area. Jin declared he was about to show them what he was made of. The light illuminated the other trainees. As Jin remembered his past, he recalled the 7 years he spent crawling in the dirt of Murim's world. Jin gripped his sword tightly. He looked confident, ready to prove his worth in this new world. Jin suddenly grabbed his head, feeling a sharp pain. He stumbled, losing his balance on the rocky ground. Jin wondered if the monster was already there, having not even taken a step. He gripped his sword tightly, ready to defend himself. Jin was in pain, but he heard someone shout. He was asked if he was all right by the young lady, Manhwa, who was standing next to him. The girl with black hair asked if Jin was the person they were talking about. She added that they were lucky because they must have been separated when they entered the gate. At the bottom of the panel, Kim Il-young looks up. Manhwa said that since the senior was there, their party would surely win easily. The other girl asked if Manhwa wasn't mistaken. The girl added that Jin didn't even have mana, let alone a skill. Suddenly, someone in the group shouted. They looked furious, ready to defend their friend. Kang Byok-chul shouted that he had witnessed it firsthand. He was talking about how impressive Kim Il-young's martial arts were. Kim Il-young looked confused, wondering what Kang Byok-chul meant by Hyung. Kang Byok-chul asked Kim Il-young if he was younger than him, calling him Hyung. He seemed really confused by the situation. Kang Byok-chul insisted that he was 21 years old. Kang Byok-chul didn't think Kim Il-young believed him. He told him to look in the mirror, wondering if people would believe him. Meanwhile, Kim Il-young looked furious as he thought about his receding hairline. He said that whatever, it could happen. Manhwa commented that there were 10 people in the party, which was neither too many nor too few. She then asked Li Jia if she could keep up the light magic. Li Jia replied that it was possible and that she was confident in her mana reserves. Manhwa said that was good and told everyone to get moving. She reminded them that their situation was being broadcast live to clan officials. Li Jia looked shocked, realizing that if she became conceited, that would be a bad thing. She wondered what she should do. Kim Il-young thought to himself that he had to pretend to be firm and composed. He was clearly feeling the pressure of being watched. Manhwa told everyone to get into position based on their roles. She said that Kang Baek-cheol and the senior would be leading the charge at the front. It seemed like she knew what she was doing, but the others looked a little nervous. Kang Byok-chul was pumped to be on the front lines with the senior again. He was clearly enjoying himself. Meanwhile, Kim Il-young sighed, realizing there was no way he was going to be able to sneak away quietly. Manhwa then asked Li Jia to move the light forward. She was clearly in charge and making sure everyone was doing their job. The dungeon looked dark and scary. Li Jia replied immediately, saying, "Of course." She looked happy to be helping out. She was probably trying to impress the clan officials who were watching. And immediately, Li Jia cast her light magic, illuminating the dark dungeon. The place looked pretty creepy, with twisted trees and strange shadows. It was definitely not a place to wander around alone. The party moved forward into the dungeon, but they were immediately met with a swarm of spiders. The horde of creepy crawlies was enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Manhwa screamed, asking what that was and saying it was gross. She looked absolutely disgusted by the sight of the spiders. At the top, the party stood ready to fight the spiders, but at the same time, Kim Il-young sighed, saying it was just a bug and that Pangea wasn't living up to his expectations. He was clearly not impressed by the challenge so far, smiling confidently. Manhwa cast her Song of Sowing spell, preparing to attack. But immediately, she realized she had lost the initiative. She looked surprised and worried. Up top, a bright light shone as someone cast a spell. Meanwhile, Manhwa was concentrating hard, ready to unleash her magic. The spiders were being attacked by some kind of magic. They were starting to slow down, becoming easy targets. The guy watched the spiders, noticing their movements were slowing down. He wondered if it was some kind of debuff. Manhwa unleashed her Sickle of Harvest spell. She was impressed by her own power, exclaiming, "Wow." As the spiders were being destroyed, a system window popped up. It said that a request had been generated. The guy smiled, saying that the request was coming. He looked excited about it. A system window popped up, showing the quest details for Pest Extermination is also a hero's duty. It was a very easy quest, and the reward was 175 EXP and a slight increase in the proficiency of the triple divine sword technique. Because of that, the guy smiled, thinking he couldn't lose at all. He started to condense his energy, getting ready to fight the rest of the monsters. The energy around him started to glow. He swung his sword fast, using the rapid one-strike sword technique. The swing was so fast, it created a gust of wind. The guy attacked the spiders, striking twice every second. The spiders didn't stand a chance against the speed of his attacks. He continued his assault on the remaining spiders. He thought to himself that it was time to hunt the giant bug, since there were only 11 left. Kim Il-yong's sword crackled with energy as he prepared to strike. He was really feeling the battle. He even shouted out, saying this is how a battle feels. He was super hyped. Hong Huayan didn't waste any time. She yelled out, "Sickle of Harvest," and unleashed her attack. Hong Huayan's attack sliced through the spiders with overwhelming power. The spiders didn't even see it coming. They were instantly wiped out. Kim Il-yong was caught off guard by her sudden attack. He thought they were gonna fight together. Meanwhile, Hong Huayan was smiling, like she knew exactly what she was doing. Kim Il-yong looked annoyed. He asked why she kept saying things like that. He thought it was so burdensome, but Hong Huayan just kept smiling at him. Hong Huayan stared in disbelief. She wondered how that guy could compete with her on equal terms. With 0 mana, how could he even fight? And what the hell were those movements? The protagonist slashed through the enemies with incredible speed. He was panting, but then he got a notification. Quest completed. He leveled up, and his proficiency in the triple divine sword technique had increased. The guy smirked, asking why they were just watching. Didn't they want to become more appealing to the clan officials? He added that it would be a petty revenge. He then asked if they weren't going to level up. Hong Huayan looked annoyed, saying that he didn't even leave them with a single monster. The other man next to her looked just as upset. Meanwhile, the guy who spoke before was smirking, clearly enjoying their frustration. Suddenly, a bunch of monsters appeared, ready to attack. They looked fierce and hungry. The group of adventurers stood ready, facing whatever challenge the dungeon threw at them next. The guy in front spoke up, announcing that he would concede a little this time. He seemed to be trying to sound confident, but there was a hint of nervousness in his voice. At the same time, a horde of goblins charged forward, their eyes filled with hunger. They were ready to tear anyone apart. Meanwhile, someone watched from below with a creepy smile. He seemed to be enjoying the chaos. Suddenly, one of the girls screamed for help, clearly terrified by the sudden attack. Her hands were shaking as she tried to defend herself. She was clearly not prepared for this. The goblins swarmed around, their sharp claws and teeth bared. They were a terrifying sight to behold. Meanwhile, another girl wondered if it was goblins this time. She sounded relieved, like she could handle this. The girl smiled, a glint of excitement in her eyes. She declared that it was something she could fight against. She seemed eager to prove herself. Hong Huayan was not about to let anyone steal her spotlight. She wouldn't lose to those other two, she thought. She was determined to show her strength. The attacker laughed like a maniac as he went after the goblins. He challenged them to bring it on, ready for a fight. A notification popped up, announcing that a request had been generated. The guy looked surprised, wondering if more requests would keep showing up like this. The man thought that the Dungeon of Proof was really awesome. He smiled, clearly enjoying the challenge. The man changed his mind and decided to join in on this one too. He looked eager to test his skills. Kim Il-yong stared ahead, a determined look on his face. He was ready for anything that came his way, not backing down from this challenge. Kim Il-yong was surrounded by goblins, but he didn't seem worried at all. He swung his blade, ready to take them all down. Hong Huayan looked shocked, thinking, what is this? You said you wouldn't get involved in this one. Although it's unfortunate, now that things have turned out this way, all of these monsters. Meanwhile, Kim Il-yong was smiling, ready to take on the challenge. Kim Il-yong was pumped up, thinking that all of these monsters would become his experience. He was ready to level up and get stronger. The goblins didn't stand a chance against Kim Il-yong. They screamed in terror as he unleashed his power. Kim Il-yong was in his element, shouting, Hiap! That's the feeling. He loved the thrill of battle and the feeling of getting stronger. Kim Il-yong was covered in battle marks and scars. He thought to himself if this was what they called an addiction, remembering his 7 years of intense experience crawling at the bottom of the Mirim world that he would never forget. The protagonist felt like he was still stuck there in some way, back in that hellish place. Even so, he loved this feeling of battle. An unknown person said that this guy was really a crazy scumbag and that he was willing to give them this one. The person then said that this was where the competition would start. The unknown person continued that people, as expected, needed competition to push their desire to get better to new heights. He seemed very excited about the upcoming challenge. The woman looked surprised, thinking about how crazy the guy was. Meanwhile, Someone was laughing like a maniac, clearly enjoying the situation. The observation room was located on the very top floor of the association building. The place was huge. Mr. Kim asked if this was really the viewing method of the 21st century. The director fired back, asking if Mr. Kim really expected any kind of filming drone to work Pangea. The director explained that this was thanks to the Mother of Earth, Osis, and her consideration. He added that in the past, they couldn't even see what happened inside the dungeon. Anyway, the unknown woman asked who that guy was and where he came from. She seemed very curious about the new player. One of the men responded that if he remembered correctly, the guy was previously judged to have 0 mana. It was quite a surprise that he was now a powerful player. They noticed that his class was unique. It seemed that he had a special class called Ronin. The unknown woman wondered what kind of skills he used. She knew it was just a F-class monster, but it was almost like a massacre. She watched the protagonist slice through the monster with ease. She wondered if Manhwa could do something like that. The group was shocked by the protagonist's fighting style. They wondered how he could extend his blade like that. One of them asked how that was even possible, since he had 0 mana. The group thought that was definitely weird. They figured there must be some special benefits to his class that they didn't know about. They decided to start digging for information about him. The woman explained that he wasn't just a dummy grenade. Basically, she was saying that he wasn't an useless distraction like they thought he was. She ordered them to contact the recruitment team and add him to the checklist as well. The man replied that he would tell them right away. The woman thought that was to be expected of a unique class. Even if the person was worthless, he was still a warrior. She realized that if this continued, she'd need a lot of military funds. Below, the liquid swirled in a circle. Back in the dungeon, our hero continued to fight the monsters. He moved with incredible speed, cutting through their ranks with ease. The protagonist's sword sliced through one of the monsters. The blade cut through its flesh, leaving a trail of dark battle marks. The monster gurgled as it died. Battle marks poured from the wound as it collapsed to the ground, defeated. The protagonist stood with his party, looking over the monsters they had just defeated. They had clearly won the fight, and the area was littered with the remains of their enemies. The woman with the red bow was furious. She asked if the protagonist was retaliating because she had previously ignored him. As an immediate result, the protagonist apologized to her. The protagonist said he saw battle marks, and his vision became blurry. He then claimed he was seeing a devil. The woman and the other man looked at him, unsure of what to think. The woman said that since she felt a little sorry, she would give him some leeway for the next monster. She told them to continue. With a smile, she said that everything was fine. Really? The woman smiled, thinking that the senior was a really funny guy. Meanwhile, a strange energy swirled around them. The protagonist wondered what was coming next. He looked grim, like he was expecting something bad. The protagonist asked if it was just him who had heard something. He was confused why no one else was reacting to it. Manhwa asked the senior why he was stopping. She then told him to forget it and keep going. Meanwhile, the protagonist was focused on the sound he had heard. The protagonist thought about the sound again. He was starting to get concerned about it. The protagonist ordered them to shine the light in that direction. He was annoyed that no one else seemed to hear the sound. Manhwa looked around, trying to figure out where that sound was coming from. She seemed concerned, like she knew it wasn't good. And immediately, a horde of green slime monsters appeared. They were all squirming and looked pretty gross. One of the men with Manhwa looked around nervously. He asked if those things were slimes. The protagonist examined the monsters with interest. He wondered if his sword could cut through something so soft and squishy. Another member of the group shouted and activated his shield. He looked ready to defend against the slime attack. The guy looked intense, like he was about to do something crazy. He shouted that this was the time for him to show everyone what he could do, and immediately, the door exploded into pieces. The guy yelled about having a rush of trust as he charged through the opening. The slime monsters didn't stand a chance against him. He was mowing them down left and right. The guy was laughing like a maniac, saying he was going to get rid of all of them at once. The slime monsters were popping left and right. He was having the time of his life. The guy was laughing like a maniac, saying he was going to get rid of all of them at once. Manhwa watched Kang Baek-chul with a mix of admiration and embarrassment. She thought he was cool, but also a bit much. The guy watched the battle unfold with a smirk. He commented that the Vanguard class was also pretty good. Manhwa unleashed her marionette dance magic. She was ready to show off her skills. Manhwa grinned, feeling confident. She announced that she was also going to put on a good would show. The slime monsters were getting shredded. It looked like someone was having a field day with them. Manhwa cast her spell, Sickle of Harvest. She looked determined to wipe out the remaining monsters. The ice spears pierced through the slime monsters. The monsters didn't stand a chance against the sudden attack. Li Jia prepared to unleash her next attack. She announced that she was going to do a more perfect performance with her ice spear magic. The ice spears rained down on the slime monsters, piercing them. The monsters were getting destroyed by the ice magic. One of the guys watching complimented Li Jia, saying she was amazing. He added that it was just some simple skill for her. Then another guy announced that he was going to make his move too. He smirked, ready to show off his own skills. One of the guys shouted for them not to do anything. He demanded that they give up if they had any conscience at all. The other guy just stood there, watching the scene unfold. The guy smirked, saying he had already given them the little leeway he promised. Since they had reduced the slimes by half, he didn't see any point in listening to them any further. The woman screamed that it was time for slaughter, and immediately, the guy moved with incredible speed, slicing through the air with his sword. The woman yelled at the guy to just go and die already. Meanwhile, he continued to slash through the air with his sword, showing no signs of stopping. One of the people fighting the slimes said that they were gonna lose it. She desperately asked everyone to bear with it and keep going, clearly at her limit. Manhwa screamed for the monsters to die. She unleashed her magic with a burst of power. The ground was completely wrecked after the attack. It was a scene of total destruction. The other characters were surprised and excited. They realized they had leveled up because they were fighting real monsters. Kim Il-young wondered if he should check his level too. He saw that his level had risen to 12, and his stats had also improved. The group decided to check their techniques. They were excited, thinking they would soon be as strong as a third-rate martial artist. Manhwa pointed towards the end of the dungeon, announcing she could finally see the light. Everyone was excited, wondering if they were the first to reach the final destination. One of the guys declared that it had to be him who arrived first, not the others. Meanwhile, the rest of the group kept running, pushing themselves to the limit. The group finally reached their goal, exhausted but thrilled. They cheered, believing they had made it. They were shocked to find that other people had already arrived. One of them asked if they could still be first if they kept going at this pace. The two men realized this was an excellent chance to get the clan's attention, but they were confused. How did the others get here so fast? Did they use some kind of trick? Meanwhile, the other guy didn't seem to care and just picked his nose. Kim Il-young looked around, clearly confused. What? Out of nowhere? He muttered, trying to understand what was happening. Someone shouted that the kid was still alive. He declared that the Dungeon of Proof was no big deal, right? He added that he had won, but was still tripping for no reason. Manhwa looked determined and announced that it was starting now. She clarified that she was referring to the boss raid. The man asked what kind of monster usually appeared as the boss. Manhwa replied that it depended, but it was usually 1 or 2 hobgoblins or gnoll centurions. The man said that it didn't seem like a big deal. Manhwa explained that was usually the case. However, there were times when a dark orc chai or something more powerful was summoned, and the number of deaths was staggering at the time. She finished by mentioning the dark orc again. A dark energy started to fill the air. It felt like something big was about to happen. At the same time, the man felt an immense pressure bearing down on him. He looked up, sensing the danger. Meanwhile, the protagonist stepped forward, his eyes widening. He seemed shocked by what he was seeing. Turns out, it was a dark orc. The orc roared, and it looked like there were more than one of them. This was going to be a tough fight. The situation just got worse. One of the orcs pointed out that there were 3 of them, which was not good at all. One of the guys screamed, clearly terrified by the sudden appearance of so many powerful monsters. The people realized they were in way over their heads. They knew they couldn't beat the orcs. People were starting to panic. Someone shouted for everyone to run away, which seemed like the only option at this point. It was a free-for-all as people scrambled to escape. The orcs started attacking the fleeing people. It was a massacre, as the monsters easily overpowered them. Manhwa shouted at the others, telling them not to leave people behind, even if they ran. She looked desperate, refusing to let anyone die. At the same time, Kim Il-young looked determined, knowing they couldn't just abandon everyone. Suddenly, a powerful energy slash cut through the air. The force of the attack was immense, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. An orc impaled one of the people with its weapon. The person coughed up battle marks, clearly in immense pain as he was being killed. One of the people was bleeding from the mouth after being hit. He was clearly in shock, not understanding what had just happened. At the same time, another person was also bleeding, looking equally terrified. Kim Il-young realized that if things kept going like this, they were all going to be wiped out. He looked worried, knowing they needed to do something fast. Meanwhile, one of the orcs roared, ready to continue the slaughter. One of the guys coughed up battle marks, still reeling from the last attack. He looked like he was about to pass out from the pain. Another one of the people screamed, completely terrified. He didn't know what to do, and he was clearly panicking. The energy slash flew through the air, a sign of the chaos happening around them. And because of that, Kim Il-young realized that expecting these rookies to work together against the boss was pretty much impossible. An orc continued its savage attacks, not giving anyone a chance to breathe. Kim Il-young thought to himself that this was a desperate situation. The orc swung its weapon, ready to crush anyone in its path. Kim Il-young knew this was also dangerous, and he was finding it hard to deal with alone. The orc was attacking, showing no mercy, and right after that, the orc taunted that he was glad there was still someone who could hold out. Hong Hua-yan screamed that it was dangerous, and that Mr. Kong Baek-cheol needed to move back fast. She then shouted the name of her skill, Sickle of Harvest. Hong Hua-yan attacked the orc with her Sickle of Harvest skill. The attack looked powerful, but the orc seemed unfazed. The orc smirked, clearly confident in its strength. It looked like it was enjoying the fight. Hong Hua-yan screamed, looking desperate. She then shouted the name of another skill, Marionette Dance. The orc roared, showing his power, while Hong Hua-yan looked up, realizing she was in trouble. She was gritting her teeth, admitting that he was too strong. Hong Hua-yan was determined to keep fighting. She was gathering her energy to cast another spell, hoping it would work this time. Hong Hua-yan shouted the name of her skill, Song of Sowing, as she unleashed a new attack. At the same time, the orc was ready to counter, not intimidated at all. The staff glowed with intense magical energy. It was clear that Hong Hua-yan was putting everything she had into this attack. Hong Hua-yan was hit by a powerful blast, sending her flying back. She groaned in pain, realizing her attack had failed. Kim Il-young shouted at Hong Hua-yan not to come back, because she would die at that rate. And immediately, a request was generated, called "You are the savior." It said that to rescue a beauty in danger was the mark of a hero, and the reward was 235 EXP, and a big boost to the triple divine sword technique, plus the hymn of the hero for 5 minutes. Kim Il-young was fighting the orcs. He didn't expect a request like this to appear. He didn't expect that he would need to put his life on the line just to fight a boss. Kim Il-young was worried, wondering if he felt scared. He had the triple divine sword and could use the hymn of the hero for 5 minutes. The orc was about to strike Hong Hua-yan with a massive weapon. Kim Il-young wondered if he was willing to let her die. Kim Il-young decided that obviously he wasn't willing to let her die. He admitted he may be scared, but he was not a coward. The orc raised its weapon to strike Hong Hua-yan, and at the same time, Hong Hua-yan shouted for her senior. Kim Il-young moved forward with determination. He thought that he had been in this situation numerous times before. Kim Il-young ran across the battlefield. He remembered how fear and hopelessness overflowed in those battles, but he had survived time and time again. The orc roared, ready to attack, but Kim Il-young shouted that it was time to prove it. Kim Il-young dashed forward, thinking that his 7 years crawling at the bottom of the Murim weren't wasted. He was ready to use that experience. The orc roared and swung its weapon down, and immediately after, the orc roared and swung its weapon down, and immediately after, the orc roared once again, ready to crush anyone in its path. Kim Il-young was about to be hit right in the face. He yelled, knowing he was in danger. Kim Il-young grimaced in pain. He was pushing himself to the limit. The orc growled, clearly not happy. It was ready to destroy anything. Kim Il-young was aware that the orc wasn't just strong, but also skilled. He knew he had to give it everything he had, so he thought that it was do or die. Kim Il-young launched a counterattack against the orc. He was relieved that his plan had actually worked. The orc was surprised that even after getting hit, Kim Il-young could still fight back. The orc admitted that the guy had great endurance. Kim Il-young faced the orcs head on, not intimidated at all. He thought to himself that the orc's end was certain, because in a life or death situation, the most cool-headed one always wins. Kim Il-young moved with incredible speed. He wasn't going to give the orcs any chance to recover. The young master's hand moved like lightning. He was ready to end this fight. The orc was suddenly struck by a dark energy attack. Kim Il-young asked him how it felt to experience the thrill he had been so excited for, implying that the orc was getting a taste of his own medicine. The orc roared, seeing a chance to strike back. He swung his sword down at Kim Il-young with all his might, but at the same time, Kim Il-young just smiled, confident in what was about to happen. Kim Il-young raised his sword and blocked the orc's attack with ease. The force of the impact echoed through the dungeon, but the young master didn't even flinch. Kim Il-young asked if the orc could withstand what was coming. He declared that of course the orc couldn't, and with that, he unleashed the 6 Harmonies fist on the orc. The force of the punch was devastating, sending the orc flying backwards. The orc crashed into the wall, leaving a huge crater in the stone. The orc tried to block, but it was too late. Kim Il-young's Azure Dragon Claw attack landed with full force, and the orc screamed in pain. Manhwa Yuan watched the fight with excitement. She was really impressed, and thought to herself that the young master was amazing. The orc was hit again, and yelled out in pain. He was clearly struggling to keep up with the young master's attacks. The orc tried to regain his balance, stepping forward to try and get back in the fight. He was desperate to turn the tide of the battle. Kim Il-young watched the orc struggle and grinned. He asked the orc how it felt to be cornered by a mere human being, clearly enjoying the moment. The orc roared, its red eyes glowing with rage. It was clearly not happy about being cornered. The orc was starting to sweat, feeling a heavy pressure coming from Kim Il-young. He couldn't believe how much power the young master was holding back. The orc roared again, trying to intimidate Kim Il-young, but the young master just laughed, joking about how the orc was acting like a character from Dragon Ball. The orc didn't waste any time and swung its sword down at Kim Il-young. The attack was fast and brutal. Kim Il-young countered with a powerful energy attack, hitting the orc head on. The force of the blow sent the orc flying backwards. The orc swung its sword with everything it had, but it was starting to panic. He couldn't believe the young master had suddenly become so much stronger. The orc thought to himself, he got stronger all of a sudden. What kind of thing is this? The orc was hit hard, stumbling back from the force of the blow. He realized he couldn't keep up with Kim Il-young's speed. He thought, I can't keep up. I'm at a disadvantage. Seeing their leader struggling, the other orcs charged forward to help. They were desperate to turn the tide of the battle, but they were clearly outmatched. The orc leader looked absolutely furious. He screamed out, Duranka! Kim Il-young was barely scratched, looking calm and confident. He knew he had the upper hand now. The orc realized, oh no, he has the advantage now. Kim Il-young blocked the orc's sword with ease. The force of the impact still shook his arms, but he didn't even flinch. Kim Il-young screamed as he prepared to unleash his full power. He was ready to end this fight right here and now. Another orc charged in, yelling that he was going to help his leader. He looked determined, but he was probably just going to get in the way. Kim Il-young smirked, seeing the orc charging in. He realized that the orc was still alive. He was ready to take on both of them. Kim Il-young felt a rush of power flowing through him. He was confident that he could take down both orcs without any trouble. The orcs kept swinging their weapons with savage force, but from below, Manhwa Yan yelled that she was there to help her senior. She was ready to fight alongside him. Kang Beok-cheol smirked, knowing that Manhwa Yan was strong. He knew they could take on these monsters together. Manhwa Yan unleashed her magic, calling it the marionette dance. Her power surged forward, ready to strike the enemy. The orc was getting overwhelmed by the combined attacks of Kang Beok-cheol and Manhwa Yan. Because of their teamwork, an opening was created. Kang Beok-cheol saw the opening and prepared to strike. He knew it was enough of a gap to cut off the orc's breath and end the fight. The orc swung his sword down with all his might, yelling that they were gonna die right there. Kim Il-young and Manhwa Yan were surrounded, but they fought together. It was a tough battle, but they were determined to win. Suddenly, a bunch of system messages popped up. Turns out, Kim Il-young leveled up and even got the 10-star triple divine sword technique. The battle was finally over, and Kim Il-young was breathing heavily. He was exhausted, but he had made it through. The rest of the group cheered, happy that they had won. They raised their hands in victory, relieved that the fight was over. Kang Beok-cheol was shocked. What was this? Heroic anthem activated. His attack power, stats, and inner power increased by 250% for 5 minutes. An unexpected buff was given. Kang Beok-cheol could feel his battle marks boiling. He felt an inner strength flowing through his veins. He wondered what he should call this feeling. Kang Beok-cheol Byuk-chul didn't think he could lose it all. Was this the hero's sensation? He looked up, ready to fight. The orcs roared and charged. Their attack was wild and savage. They were determined to take them down. Kang Byuk-chul knew there was no way out anyway. They couldn't get out of the dungeon without defeating the boss. He steeled himself, ready to face whatever came next. The people screamed as they tried to escape. The orcs' roar echoed through the dungeon, and they were terrified. Kang Byuk-chul steeled his resolve. It was an inevitable fight, a fight for life. His heart was racing like crazy. He knew he had to give it one last shot, even if the price was death. Kang Byuk-chul shouted, telling them to bring it on. He challenged the knuckleheads to see how well they could dance with blades. He was ready to fight. The orcs roared back at him. They looked absolutely furious and ready to tear him apart. Kang Byuk-chul smirked, ready to unleash his technique. He muttered that he was going to use the triple divine sword technique. Blades of light shot out in every direction. The orcs roared in pain as the swords pierced them. Kang Byuk-chul's attack landed with a loud smack. He thought to himself that he would hit with the 5 elements and then retreat automatically. Kang Byuk-chul continued his assault with the 5 elements. The orc could barely defend himself against the barrage of attacks. Suddenly, Kang Byuk-chul was sent flying backwards. He lost his balance and crashed to the ground. Kang Byuk-chul was getting swarmed by the 2 Class D monsters. They were attacking him from both sides, forcing him to defend desperately. The orcs didn't give him any room to breathe. Their swords came down on him with incredible speed, forcing him to block and dodge. He was starting to feel the pressure. The orcs kept attacking, pushing Kang Byuk-chul to his limit, and immediately, one of the monsters screamed in pain. Kang Byuk-chul was pushing through his pain, landing a solid hit on one of the orcs. The monster roared, clearly hurt by the attack. The orc screamed, feeling the full force of Kang Byuk-chul's attack. He was in serious pain, but he wasn't giving up yet. He shouted in pain. Kang Byuk-chul was getting ready to attack. He knew his abilities were limited compared to the monster's power. He was determined to make his next move fast, closing the distance in an instant. The sword sliced deep into the orc. Dark battle marks sprayed as the blade cut through its flesh. The orc was hit hard, staggering backwards from the force of the blow. He coughed up battle marks, clearly in a lot of pain. The orc roared in anger, trying to shake off the pain. Kang Byuk-chul was still standing, but the 2 orcs were ready to keep fighting. Kang Byuk-chul was breathing heavily, sweat dripping down his face. He thought to himself that facing 2 opponents at once was exhausting, even with the heroic anthem buff. He felt overwhelmed. Kang Byuk-chul realized he was facing 2 Class D monsters, which was way too much for a novice like him. He was about to get wrecked, and immediately he kicked out with all his might, trying to take down one of the monsters. The orc roared, shouting some nonsense at Kang Byuk-chul. He looked furious. Meanwhile, the 2 orcs were ready to fight, standing their ground as they prepared to attack Kang Byuk-chul. Kang Byuk-chul wondered what was happening, trying to understand the situation. He was completely caught off guard. He wondered where that move even came from. One of the orcs roared again, showing his anger. At the same time, Kang Byuk-chul realized his buff was about to run out, and he was not happy about it. He knew this situation was bad. The orc roared, getting ready to attack again. He looked like he was enjoying this fight way too much. Kim Il-yong stared down the orc, ready for whatever was about to happen. He wasn't even fazed by the battle marks splattering around him. He was calm and collected. The battle raged on, and the group was running to join the fight. They were determined to help their senior. They were going to arrive just in time. Hong Hua-yun shouted that it was killer timing. She looked determined to turn the tide of the battle. She was ready to unleash some serious power. Kim Il-yong smirked, a glint in his eye. He seemed to be enjoying the chaos unfolding around him. He was ready to show them what he could do. Hong Hua-yun shouted, "Sickle of Harvest," as she unleashed her magic. The orcs didn't stand a chance against her power. She was a force to be reckoned with. Hong Hua-yun shouted, "Swift Strike," as she unleashed her attack. Her eyes were full of determination as she prepared to strike. The orc was hit by a powerful blow, and he screamed in pain. The force of the attack sent him flying back. The orc shouted back, ready to retaliate with his axe. He looked absolutely furious. The battle raged on as the group fought against the monsters. Someone cried out in pain, showing how intense the fight was. The man swung his sword, struggling to survive. He was clearly overwhelmed and shouted that it was like like hell on Earth. The fight was pure chaos, a whirlwind of blades and magic. The group was giving it everything they had against the orcs, but it was still a tough fight. Manhwa shouted the incantation for her spell, unleashing a powerful magic attack. The orc screamed as the magic struck him, clearly in immense pain. The orc kept screaming as the magic coursed through him. Meanwhile, Manhwa looked on, seemingly unaffected by the monster's pain. The scene shifted to Kim Il-yong, his expression unreadable. He seemed to be deep in thought, his eyes narrowed slightly. Il-yong gripped the hilt of his sword tightly, his knuckles turning white. He thought to himself that his body felt as heavy as a water-soaked sponge. Kim Il-yong stood his ground, his stance firm and ready. He looked determined, prepared for whatever was about to come next. Kim Il-yong wondered if the so-called Mother of Heroes was just going to stand by and do nothing. He asked himself if he should abandon this crucial fight because she wasn't supporting him, but then he remembered that he lives by the sword and can't back down now. At some point, a moment of adversity will come, an old man thought, and at that moment, no trick will work. He knew. Kim Il-yong remembered some advice. Just trust in the martial arts you've built up. He took a deep breath, trying to focus. He recalled being told to steadily cut down each enemy before him, without wavering. The man in the memory said that in doing so, the martial way would surely respond. He remembered those words clearly. Kim Il-yong looked determined. He was going to believe in himself. He steeled his resolve, ready to face whatever came next. The group was swarming the monster, each of them trying to get a hit in. They looked determined, ready to take down this beast, no matter what it took. The monster was taking damage, but it was still standing strong. Kim Il-yong charged forward, screaming that they would die. He was determined to defeat the strong, no matter what it took. His eyes burned with a fierce intensity. A leg connected with a head, the force of the impact sending the head flying. It was all about surpassing your limits and becoming more than yourself, he thought. The attackers stood over their fallen opponent, ready to deliver the final blow. They were going to go forward, feeding on the battle marks of their enemies, because it was the right thing to do. Kim Il-yong's face was covered in battle marks, but his eyes were still burning with determination. This was the way of the warrior, and he wouldn't back down. Kim Il-yong shouted that he was using the 5 elements step. He looked determined, ready to unleash his full power on the enemy. The orc looked shocked, its eyes wide with disbelief. It had no idea what was coming, and it was too late to prepare. Kim Il-yong unleashed a devastating attack, the energy exploding outwards. The force of the blow was enough to shake the entire area. Kim Il-yong's face was set with determination, sweat dripping down his forehead. He was pushing himself to the limit, but he wouldn't stop until the job was done. At the same time, Manhwa and someone else were cheering him on. They shouted for him to go for it, saying that this chance wouldn't come again. Kim Il-yong was ready to finish this fight, shouting to the orc to drop dead. He was putting everything he had into this final strike, his face full of anger. The orc could only stare as the attack came closer, its eye wide with fear. It knew it was about to get hit hard. Kim Il-yong didn't hold back, screaming as he struck the orc. The sound of the impact echoed through the dungeon. Kim Il-yong kept up the pressure, telling the orc to stand its ground. The orc was sent flying backwards from the force of his blows. The orc lay defeated on the ground, unable to move. Kim Il-yong had finally beaten the strong, just like he always did back in the Murim world. The strike landed with brutal force, splattering battle marks everywhere. The red energy around his fist showed just how much power he was putting into it, and immediately, a system message popped up. He had leveled up. He got the title Dual Class Warrior and unlocked a new skill. Kim Il-yong couldn't help but grin, finally achieving something big. He remembered the dream he couldn't even reach in the world of martial arts. He let out a triumphant shout, finally feeling like he was getting somewhere. At the same time, Manhwa commented that Kim Il-yong was born to fight. He had wiped out the orcs in one fell swoop. Another woman looked on in shock at the dark orcs' defeat. One of the other adventurers looked at the destruction with worry. He was clearly nervous about what had just happened. Manhwa looked at Kim Il-yong, admitting that she had been mistaken about him. She seemed surprised by his power. The guy went on to say that if his brother's blade was like a chilling ice storm, then the senior's blade was like an erupting volcano. He was clearly impressed by the power he had just witnessed, and immediately, someone in the crowd was freaking out, wondering what they had just seen. He couldn't believe that a rookie adventurer who had only awakened a week ago could have such strength. He was completely baffled. One of them asked who exactly that young person was. The other one replied that his name was Kim Il-yong, the rookie adventurer with an unusual talent for defeating F-rank monsters. But the first guy dismissed that, saying defeating F-rank monsters wasn't that big of a deal. The guy asked if, since he had been keeping an eye on them, he had a plan to recruit them. The other guy said that last time, he had been told to go all out to recruit Manhwa Yan, but he hadn't had a chance to contact that young man yet. He then asked if he hadn't even approached him, but then said there was a positive side to this. The man wondered who this new person was. The guy below was furious, yelling about how no other clans had contacted him, so at least the playing field was level. He then asked if that was supposed to be a good thing, since he was supposed to be scouting. He was getting paid a fortune, but he was just talking about waiting. What a waste. The man ordered them to quickly gather more information about them and find some recruits. He knew there was something special about them when they slaughtered the ground beetles and orcs. But then, he thought about the dark orc. Executive Director Lee Hani thought that the competition would intensify after the graduation ceremony. The other person replied that it would be more like a war zone. Their value would likely skyrocket beyond Manhwa Yan's. The guy asked if they were really more valuable than Manhwa Yan. The woman said absolutely. Manhwa Yan couldn't take down 3 dark orcs either, so she wanted them to bring them in, even if they had to dismantle the Ilsung Group's foundation. She added that they were just adventurers chasing wealth. If they presented an irresistible offer, they would eventually join them. The woman thought they wouldn't suffer a loss. As her grandfather always said, the foundation of this business was talent. Super rookies like them didn't yet know their true value, the potential and growth they possessed. The man let out an of relief, saying he was really worried about how things would turn out earlier. They managed to avoid a major setback. Even experienced adventurers couldn't have helped in that situation, and it could have been a massive disaster. He added that if an entire group had been wiped out without making progress, things would have been much worse. Meanwhile, the man continued, if an entire group had been wiped out without making progress, the man continued, South Korea's Pangea industry competitiveness would have suffered significantly. He thought he should suggest to the government to increase the armor rental rating this time, but then he wondered if they wouldn't reject it due to budget issues, like last time. The woman wondered who knew. If they mentioned this incident, they might just downplay it, saying that it wasn't a big problem after all. She sighed, frustrated by the cursed bureaucracy. The government always seemed to be reactive rather than proactive. The man was so frustrated right now. He knew it was understandable that there wasn't a guild that wouldn't take in a rookie adventurer who defeated 3 D-ranked monsters consecutively. It was every man for himself. He added that they would also like him to join, but someone like him probably wouldn't be accepted into the association. The man sighed, saying it was obvious adventurers these days lacked the adventurous spirit and were driven by money and power. He seemed pretty bummed about it. The energy orb pulsed with a strange light. It was hard to tell what it meant, but it definitely felt important. Suddenly, a group of rookie adventurers arrived. They announced their presence with confidence, and right after, another group appeared, looking much rougher. A man started chanting, asking for healing. He was clearly trying to help someone. Down below, the group of adventurers seemed to be receiving some kind of blessing. Someone wondered why the group looked so worn out. They seemed clueless about what had happened in the dungeon. And at the bottom, a man with dark hair realized that someone almost died and was miraculously saved. The man with dark hair asked if the rookie adventurer's shoulder was okay. He seemed genuinely concerned. Meanwhile, someone was getting healed with a potion. The healer gave another bottle to the injured adventurer. He said he had to leave to help others who were hurt worse. He was clearly very busy. The adventurer looked at the potion in his hand, thinking about the world around him. He thought Pangea was full of wondrous things, and experiencing it was truly amazing. With this kind of healing power, it might just be a matter of time before doctors become jobless. But the taste, well, that was another story. The potion really tasted awful. The person in front of Kim Il-young pointed out that he wasn't a rookie anymore, now that he had passed the trial dungeon. They asked him who he was. The woman smiled and introduced herself as Kim Mi-young, the director of the Adventurers Association. She said that Kim Il-young had become quite the sensation as an adventurer. Kim Il-young looked serious as a drop of sweat rolled down his face. He was probably thinking about what Kim Mi-young, the director of the Adventurers Association, had just said to him. Kim Il-young sat in the stadium, letting out a He looked like he was trying to catch his breath after something intense. He thought to himself that he must have been out of his mind, jumping into danger like that. What on earth was he thinking? It was all because of this so-called hero's aura or something, he thought. Heroes? Yeah, right. The young man wondered if being a hero was just a job where you help others with nothing to gain. The mother of heroes seemed to be telling him not to ignore his inner heroic instincts. It was a bit much for him to take in. Instincts? Please, don't make a fuss at a time like this, Kim Il-young thought. Heroic instincts in someone with a rough background. Even a passing dog would laugh. The mother of heroes was still messing with him, claiming that martial arts would answer his call. She just stood there in the bubble, making fun of him. Kim Il-young was getting seriously annoyed. He yelled, wondering why he had even bothered doing that in the first place. It was all because of this stupid hero mindset, he thought. The mother of heroes kept smirking and even started imitating him. Because of that, he cursed that damn god under his breath. Hildegren was laughing while looking at his flustered face. It felt like his list of embarrassing moments just kept growing, which made him feel even worse. Kim Il-young looked over, surprised. He wondered who this prospective adventurer was supposed to be. Kim Mi-young introduced herself as the director of the Adventurers Association. She said it was nice to meet the adventurer everyone was talking about. Kim Il-young looked at her, realizing she was a high-ranking person from the association. He seemed a bit surprised by her sudden appearance. The camera panned to show the empty auditorium. It was silent and still, waiting for something to happen. Kim Mi-young asked if Kim Il-young would consider working for the country, but he immediately turned her down, saying he was good. Recently, things had gotten hectic for Kim Il-young. He thought that all this stuff about becoming a hero and working for the country was getting really annoying. The young man looked stressed. Kim Il-young was thinking that he should visit a powerful shaman at least once. He looked serious, like he was weighing a very important decision. The director, Kim Ma-young, chuckled, asking him to take a look around. She pointed out that there was hardly any room left to squeeze him into their organization. Then she asked if he was joining a guild after all, but immediately changed her mind. Kim Mi-young was surprised. She said he turned out to be more determined than she thought. She was referring to those who had ignored him, treating him like a loser. Kim Il-young apologized, saying he would pass. He explained that his pride wouldn't let him bow down to those who looked down on him. The guy smiled, saying he'd rather hunt in the wild. He added that it had been a while since he'd seen a real man. He told him that he deserved a reward for that and asked if there was anything he wanted. He then wondered what was up with Kim Il-young. Kim Il-young was wondering why he was suddenly getting so much attention. He thought to himself, was it because he stopped the Dark Orc massacre? He looked confused. He continued thinking, was it because he said he didn't need a clan? The young man reminded himself that there was no pride when free stuff was involved. Kim Il-young realized it was one of those habits from his penniless days. He then asked if he could take something. The man in the suit said that he would cover the equipment cost personally. He added that this wasn't against the Kim Hyung-ran Act, right? He reassured him not to worry. It wasn't. The lady said to just accept it as a gift to maintain a good relationship with the association. Kim Il-young was surprised and thanked her so much, saying free stuff was always right. Kim Il-young was sitting on the stairs, looking at someone. He told them not to brag too much. He looked pretty smug about it. Two people were watching a group of people running towards them. One of them commented that the restless ones finally couldn't resist joining them. They seemed amused by the sight. The man suggested that they should step back now. He thought that the group would probably have a hard time. The lady added that she would leave too, wondering if this was really happening. A huge group of people was running towards something with incredible speed. The ground was shaking from the force of their steps. It looked like a stampede. Kim Il-young was suddenly surrounded by a bunch of people. He told them to come on out and asked why they were standing in such an awkward place. He looked annoyed. Kim Il-young glanced back at the crowd behind him and wondered if they were all talking about him. He was getting a weird feeling about this whole situation. The crowd surged forward, all trying to get his attention. They were shouting for him to join their clan, promising him a brilliant future as an adventurer. Kim Il-young found himself completely surrounded by the eager crowd. He realized this was what everyone had been talking about, and honestly, it was kind of a pain. Suddenly, a system alert popped up, telling him that a hero doesn't ride on others' coattails, and to reject them all. He scoffed, realizing that Hildegren's true intentions were now clear. The crowd's gazes intensified, and they looked like they were ready to devour him whole. It was clear that they wanted him badly. Kim Il-young thought about how those who had ignored him before were now making a big deal out of him. He hadn't forgotten how they had treated him in the waiting room, not one bit. He said that he was a person who holds firm to grudges and resolves them. The crowd was pushing him around, and he shouted at them to stop. He wondered who had so much strength that they could push through like that. A woman introduced herself as Li Hani, executive of the Ilshung clan, and offered a handshake. She seemed confident and eager to recruit him. Kim Il-young just sat there silently, leaning back against the stairs. He didn't seem too impressed by the offer. Li Hani asked if he was going to leave her hanging like that. She warned that if he was already shocked, he should wait until he saw what she had in store for him. The crowd of people were shouting at Kim Il-young, saying that their clan didn't request such evil deeds. They offered him a huge contract fee, saying that they didn't realize his true value until now, begging him to stop. Kim Il-yong put his hands up, looking annoyed. He said that if everyone talked at once, he wouldn't be able to understand them. He asked what was going on now. Kim Il-yong told them that he couldn't talk to everyone. He would only discuss things with the clans he had prior contact with. He wondered who had approached him first and which clan it was exactly. Kim Il-yong thought to himself that there probably wouldn't be any. He wondered when they would stop treating him like an invisible person just because he was Mana Zero. The young man figured they probably thought they could manage without Mana, since he couldn't use skills as an adventurer. Kim Il-yong opened his arms in disbelief. He sighed, saying that everyone seemed to lack an eye for talent. He was clearly disappointed that no one had approached him before. Kim Il-yong said that he had no choice but to leave if no one was interested in him. He remembered how they had ignored him as if he was nothing of value, and now they wanted to recruit him. The young man was not impressed by their sudden change of heart. Kim Il-yong continued, saying that they only wanted him now because he seemed valuable. He added that they had spat him out when they thought he was bitter, and now they wanted to pick him up again. The fighter found the situation laughable. The crowd started coughing, realizing there was dust everywhere. They wondered where he had gone, shocked that he had just left like that. The people were completely bewildered by his sudden departure. The crowd watched him walk away, murmuring in shock. They couldn't believe that he didn't need a party to go on this adventure. The people were left speechless by his confidence. Kim Il-yong was walking down the hallway, realizing that he wasn't at the gate yet. He figured he had some time before he arrived at his destination. The young man decided to check his status window. Kim Il-yong looked at his status window. It showed that he was level 14 and a second-class martial artist. He was finally getting somewhere. The young man felt a surge of excitement. He realized that leveling up was the answer. The number of martial arts skills he could register had increased since he reached the second-rate level. Kim Il-yong smirked, knowing he was on the right track. He needed to discard the useless color arts and odd job arts and focus on practical martial arts. Warp speed technique, 7 steps. Death control, wind essence, sword technique flashed in his mind. The fighter knew he had to be smart about this. Unorganized training hinders the progress of martial arts. Now was the time for selection and focus. Kim Il-yong's gaze hardened, ready to make some tough choices. First, he would start with the wind-cutting sword technique that he practiced countless times. Wind essence sword technique was his priority. Kim Il-yong wondered if he had to discard the ones he used before, like the 3-element swordsmanship. Kim Il-yong realized that he could inherit skills. A message popped up, asking if he wanted to inherit the proficiency of the 10-star, 3-element swordsmanship. He immediately accepted. The young man was eager to get stronger, but the system said that the 3-element swordsmanship wouldn't increase much because it was a lower-level martial art. However, the wind-cutting sword technique increased to 2 stars. He was happy that his past efforts weren't wasted. Kim Il-yong decided to inherit all of them, 5 second-tier martial arts. He smirked, ready to absorb all the power he could. The system showed him the stats. Wind essence, sword technique, 2nd stage. Hexagonal fist, 2nd stage. Small radiant technique, 2nd stage. Silent wind, 10 steps needle, 1st stage, and 7 steps death control, 2nd stage. Kim Il-yong realized he was now truly a 2nd-tier martial artist. He was making progress faster than he thought. It took Kim Il-yong a year and a half to reach the 2nd tier in the martial world with nothing. He remembered the struggle and the hardship, but with the help of the Pangea system and special assistance, he reached the 2nd tier in just 7 days. The young man was amazed at how far he had come. He thought to himself that he was incredible. Hildegren said that it was his class that was amazing, not Kim Il-yong. He added that Hildegren also had a bit of a bragging style. A group of people stared in awe at a bright red portal. It seemed like they were seeing something incredible. Hong Huayan pointed out that it was the city for novice adventurers and the dimensional gate leading to Illidel. She then asked Kim Il-yong when he had gotten there, to which he replied that he had just arrived. Hong Huayan looked at Kim Il-yong suspiciously and asked what he was staring at. She seemed a little annoyed by his gaze. Kim Il-yong asked if she was staring at the face of the hero who saved her. He then told everyone to look at this girl, saying that she casually spouts such bold words. He looked amused by her reaction. Hong Huayan asked what he meant by that, saying that he had appeared like a hero in the nick of time, defeated the Dark Orc, and saved her. She then clearly cleared her throat, looking a little embarrassed. Manhwa added that she still couldn't believe his swordsmanship skills against the Dark Orc. She then asked Kim Il-young what on earth had happened during those 7 years. Looking curious, Kim Il-young thought about how he had returned after experiencing the filthiest depths of another world. He then said that a hero's life was like wading through sticky mud. Looking grim, he continued, saying that the word hero was far from describing him. Kim Il-young stated that he was a swordsman, driven by money and profit, and that's what a hero really was. Manhwa asked if he didn't want to talk about it. She then said that she understood, as it was quite embarrassing to brag about one's own good deeds. The woman asked if he was pretending to be aloof, like a tsundere. Manhwa insisted that he would appear out of nowhere to save someone in danger like her, no matter where he was. But Kim Il-young denied it, saying that was a serious misunderstanding. Manhwa changed the subject, asking if he was okay since she had heard he had been rejecting all the clan recruitment offers. She looked at him with concern. Kim Il-young scoffed, saying that he was fine and didn't need a clan's protection. He seemed confident in his own abilities. Kim Il-young thought about how quickly people's attitudes changed, saying they weren't even bats. He added that his teeth still grinded when he thought about the disregard he had received so far, looking angry. Kim Il-young stated that his motto was to let gratitude flow like a river and to carve resentment in stone. Manhwa then asked again if he wasn't interested in joining their Hong family, looking hopeful. Kim Il-young stated that he wasn't interested in a small elite atmosphere with almost no profit sharing. He raised his hand, showing that he was firm in his decision. Manhwa grabbed his arm, begging him not to be like that. She looked at him with pleading eyes, hoping he would change his mind. Manhwa went on, explaining that they don't collect profits, don't mess with others, and all he needed to do was show up. She called it a barrage of temptation, trying to make it sound appealing. Manhwa said that she was getting dizzy, still trying to persuade him. She looked at the young man with a hopeful smile, but he didn't seem to be budging. Kim Il-young sighed, saying that he still wasn't interested. He explained that he didn't like having someone above him, making it clear that his decision was final. Manhwa asked why he cared so much about that. She looked at him with a serious expression, waiting for his answer. Kim Il-young explained that there were countless masters in the martial arts world who could trample him. He said he was done with that life, preferring to be with a snake's head than a dragon's tail. He added that he had always been tense, afraid his head would be taken. Manhwa suggested that he create his own clan and become the head of his own organization. The woman looked hopeful, thinking he might consider it. Kim Il-young said he would think about that. Kim Il-young said that if that happened, she should join too and bring that thick-headed shield along as well. He added that he would think about that too. Manhwa replied that he should, looking pleased. The crowd gasped, exclaiming that it was opening. Everyone stared in anticipation, wondering what was about to happen. The text described a mysterious otherworld that one might only see in fantasy novels. It said that although danger and hardships are inevitable, those who overcome them can enjoy great wealth and fame. The man announced to the adventurers that the test was over. He declared that they were now all full-fledged adventurers. He then told them that before them was Pangea. The man continued, saying that there would be adventures and crises. He said that he believed they could all overcome them. The leader looked at them, his eyes full of hope. The man reminded everyone that they had defeated a dark orc. The crowd looked back at him, listening intently. They seemed to be ready for anything. The man said he didn't want to receive any heated gazes from them. He looked a little uncomfortable, like he was trying to avoid something. Maybe he was nervous. The man shouted for the adventurers to go forth, declaring that Pangea awaited them. His booming voice echoed through the hall, and below, the crowd cheered in response, ready to embark on their adventures. Some of the new adventurers were already eager to get started. They asked their senior to go with them. They were ready to explore the dangers that awaited them. The god on the screen snapped her fingers, beckoning them to come. She seemed to be amused by their enthusiasm. Meanwhile, the man responded that he would go, even without being asked. He looked determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Turns out, an adventurer must embark on adventures. That's how Sun Chang responded when asked what an adventurer was. The group seemed to be listening intently, ready to take on the world. He declared that they should face the challenges and endure the risks. In return, they would get wealth and honor befitting the effort. He was ready. Crossing dimensions felt like sinking endlessly into the deep ocean. It was a chilling sensation, like being pulled down into the abyss. Upon opening his eyes to this chilling sensation, he felt a surge of cold water around him. He was waking up in a new world. A fantastical new world awaited Kim Il-young, a city of wonders in the distance. He felt a sense of anticipation and dread. One of the new adventurers looked down, asking if the senior was okay. He seemed genuinely genuinely concerned. Turns out, when you first dimension hop to Pangea, it might cause nausea, as Honghua Yan's older brother said. She looked like a mess and didn't seem like she was in a state where she should care about others right now. Kim Il-young looked around at everyone suffering. He found it a little annoying, to be honest. Kim Il-young patted Honghua Yan on the back, trying to help her feel better. She thanked him, saying it was almost too much to handle, but the pat on the back made it even more intense. Honghua Yan, still leaning on him, asked Kim Il-young how come he was doing fine. He just shrugged, saying he didn't know. Kim Il-young looked around at the others, all lying on the ground. He thought to himself that he had felt a little dizzy, but not nearly as bad as these guys. The system told him to think about his level and stats. Kim Il-young wondered if that was why he felt okay. Kim Il-young thought to himself that with high physical stats, one would likely benefit from better balance. Come to think of it, Honghua Yan's physical stats weren't great. Even if they leveled up, their stats mainly increased in what they used, so it was inevitable for mage-type characters. Kim Il-young continued thinking that maybe they should have picked a better class from the start. But no, with their current class, they probably picked well. A man cleared his throat. He welcomed the new adventurers to the City of Prosperity, Illidel. The man continued, stating that although it was an honor to witness Earthlings' meal choices every time, they should please get a grip, as they were quite busy. Another man stepped forward, asking who they might be. The man stepped forward, bowing slightly. He apologized for the late introduction, stating that he was the loyal head butler to their lord. He then introduced himself as Yahello Waterman. Yahello Waterman extended an invitation from his lord, asking the adventurers, who had struggled to reach Pangea, to attend a welcoming party. He asked if they would grace them with their presence, which made some of the adventurers wonder if they were talking about a medieval lord. Kim Il-young thought to himself about the invitation. He wondered if the party was only for new adventurers at levels 1 and 2 and not for high-level ones. Was it just to butter them up in case they grew into powerful adventurers? Kim Il-young considered the idea of a party with Pangea's nobles. He thought it was a good thing he became an adventurer, wondering if there would be pretty noble ladies there. He also observed that this place was a true fantasy world where an irrational class society thrived. Kim Il-young knew that for adventurers, level mattered more than social status, so it seemed to apply more loosely to them. Since it had come to this, he figured he might as well experience a noble social party. Yahello Waterman announced that adventurers without contracts with clans weren't invited to the party and should leave. Kim Il-young was shocked, wondering what the hell they were saying, since he was looking forward to seeing noble ladies at the social party. The other adventurers started complaining, asking why only those who signed contracts with clans were invited, and what about them. They realized a line was being drawn, and some were already saying that those without contracts were useless. Kim Il-young thought he understood. Not having a contract with a clan basically meant you lacked class and talent, which wasn't a good look. The adventurers realized that to the locals, they seemed like they had neither skills nor connections, putting them at the bottom of the ladder. Kim Il-young understood why aspiring adventurers tried so hard to join big clans. It was all about status and connections, even in this new world. Turns out, the big clans take a huge cut of the money that the adventurers make. It's supposed to be a good thing for both sides, but it's really just the clans ripping them off. With all that cash, they buy their way into the good graces of the rich and powerful Pangea. Pangea's upper class gets richer, while everyone else struggles to climb up to their level. These clans secure their power early on, using their influence to keep anyone else from getting in. That's their growth strategy, basically. Kim Il-young thought it was a dirty way to play the game, kicking away the ladder like that. Completely disgusting. It didn't matter if they knocked down a few ladders, though. Kim Il-young knew he had his own inner strength and martial arts. Just jumping over those ladders would be enough for him. But because of that arrogant way of thinking, the country ended up losing a big fish. Too bad for them. Honghua Yan tried to reassure Kim Il-young, telling him she was fine and that he shouldn't worry about her. But Kim Il-young couldn't help but frown, knowing how these things usually went. Honghua Yan asked Yahello Waterman if he could possibly bring one more person who hadn't made a contract with a clan. But Yahello Waterman shut her down immediately, saying that only those with clan contracts were invited by their lord's strict order. Honghua Yan clenched her teeth, clearly frustrated by the situation. Kim Il-young then asked Yahello Waterman where those who couldn't sign a contract with a clan should go. Yahello Waterman just shrugged, saying those who couldn't sign would figure something out, and recommended trying to find the Adventurers Guild. Oh, is that so? Kim Il-young thought, unimpressed by the callous response. Pangea Mia's first impression on Kim Il-young was that humans always rank and discriminate against each other, no matter where they went. Hong Hua-yan offered to go with Kim Il-young to the Adventurers Guild, but he told her to just see her at school. He didn't want her to get dragged down with him. Kim Il-young was used to this kind of treatment because of his days as a ronin. Instead of feeling wronged, he figured he just needed to level up a bit faster and pay them back in kind. He'd show them what a real ronin could do. The adventurers who weren't invited to the party were cursing their luck and going their own ways. One of them muttered that they should try to be productive, but admitted it was pretty sad. He called the city for beginner adventurers a joke. One man stared off into the distance, looking like he felt sorry for himself. He thought to himself that he was just an unlucky old man. The city stretched out under the sunset, full of buildings and people. It was a huge place, and it was easy to get lost. Kim Il-young wondered where the heck the Adventurers Guild was located, but turns out, communication wasn't a problem thanks to the bracelet he had, and just like that, he found the Adventurers Guild without much trouble. Above the door was a message: "May the glory of the Earth Deity be with the adventurers." The Adventurers Guild was packed. One of the guys there was pissed. He complained that there were way too many people at the guild today, and then he realized it was because the newbies were arriving. Another adventurer chimed in, saying that a dark orc had appeared as the boss for the Dungeon of Proof, and that there were actually 3 of them. He sighed, saying that this batch of newbies was screwed, especially with the monster wave coming soon. Over at another table, someone else said that he had just come from the plaza, and the new adventurers seemed to be full of energy. He was surprised to hear about the 3 dark orcs. One of the adventurers scoffed, saying that the other guy's news was slow. He wanted to know what was up, but then he pretended his throat was dry and asked for a cold honey wine first. After getting his drink, the adventurer finally revealed that there were 2 potential unique class adventurers in this batch. He said that one of them, with a single sword, had cut off the heads of all 3 dark orcs. The adventurers were buzzing with excitement about what they had just heard. One of them was practically bouncing in his seat as he asked who the guy was that had taken down the dark orcs. The other adventurer admitted he didn't know the guy's name, but he had heard of him. He wondered if the guy's class was the Ronin class. He figured it had to be unique, and that made him jealous. He was clearly envious of the guy's power. Kim Il-young realized that only a unique class could pull off that kind of feat. It was practically a cheat class. He sighed, thinking that rumors really did spread faster than one's feet. He hadn't expected the news about him to reach the guild before he did. As expected in a beginner's city guild, most of the adventurers inside were F or E rank. Every now and then, you could spot adventurers wearing D rank badges. An adventurer called out for service, but no one came. He complained that he wasn't expecting the best service, but this was a whole new level of non-existent hospitality. He was getting annoyed. The new adventurer complained that some rude old man told him to come here. He added that the old man loved bossing people around while riding on the Lord's coattails. Turns out, the other man had fallen for the same trick. The other adventurers started gossiping about the new guy. They said he had just been scolded by the butler and told to make his way here. They figured the poor guy must have been so excited to come here, but reality was harsh. The new adventurer asked if they were laughing, imagining the embarrassment he went through, and clinking glasses. He was furious and asked if they were enjoying themselves. The man tried to calm down the new adventurer, telling him not to mind the others. He explained that their personalities had become a bit strange after fighting monsters, but they weren't that bad once you got to know them. The man wondered if the Adventurers Guild was always this crowded. He looked around, waiting for an answer. One of the adventurers spoke up, explaining that it was monster wave season. He said that after the monsters were born, they moved around a lot more. The adventurer scoffed, saying that the monsters were just a bunch of weaklings. He said most of them were F and E rank, so they could handle them without any problems. The adventurer continued, saying that according to some philosopher, this wave seemed unusually large. He mentioned that the scale had been gradually increasing every time they invaded. He got flustered and started rambling about how he should have studied swordsmanship instead of wasting time on other things. He then told the Ronin to shut up if he wasn't going to say anything, but immediately regretted comparing himself to the Ronin, realizing that Kim Il-young was standing right there. Another adventurer turned to the newcomer and suggested he register as an adventurer since he was already there. He asked for his name and class. The adventurers started making bets on what class the newcomer was. One of them guessed he was a porter based on his size, but then changed his mind and said he might be a tanker. He finally settled on warrior adventurer, betting 5 silver coins and 1 gold coin. He looked nervous, like he was about to lose all his money. Kim Il-young stepped forward, his expression serious. He announced to the group that his name was Kim Il-young. He explained that his name came from a dream his mother had. In the dream, a dragon had ascended, but she was sad that it wasn't holding a Sintamani, so it couldn't enter the immortal realm. Kim Il-young paused, then declared that he had finally grasped the Sintamani. The tavern buzzed with the usual energy. Adventurers were talking, laughing, and drinking, the air thick with anticipation for the next big score. Then Kim Il-young stated clearly that his class was Ronin. Everyone in the place froze. They were clearly stunned by what they'd just heard. You could hear a pin drop. One of the adventurers finally spoke up, her voice trembling. She asked what he had just said his class was. Kim Il-young looked annoyed. He repeated that he was a Ronin. He asked how many times he had to say it. The man with a scar on his face looked around the room. He asked if Kim Il-young was really the one who took down the Dark Orc's head. A woman with blonde hair stepped forward. She explained that to register, they needed to verify his information and asked him to show his info window. Kim Il-young held up his hand, displaying his info window. The system confirmed his name and class, Ronin. The woman looked surprised, saying he really was the one with that class. The man with the scar looked excited. He realized Kim Il-young was right in front of him. He told the newbie to tell everyone the story about the Dark Orc. Kim Il-young stared at the crowd, a bit surprised by the sudden attention. He hadn't expected so many people to be interested in his story. The scarred man looked at Kim Il-young suspiciously. He wondered if he was the only one with the Ronin class. Shouldn't he be getting a title from the castle? Why was he hanging around here instead? Kim Il-young shrugged. He explained that titles were only for higher-ranked clan members, and he hadn't signed a contract with any clan, so it wasn't his problem. Another man in the crowd looked completely shocked. He couldn't believe Kim Il-young had defeated 3 Dark Orcs and still hadn't signed with a clan. Why on earth hadn't any clan taken someone like him? Kim Il-young just smirked. He said they just didn't know how to judge people. To be precise, it wasn't that he couldn't join a clan, but rather that he didn't want to. Kim Il-young paused, a distant look in his eyes. He said he learned something during his Ronin days, hinting at a past that was about to be revealed. The image flashed through Kim Il-young's mind. The fate of a swordsman rested on his employer, who could choose his enemies and allies overnight. It was a life of not making friends, not forming connections, and not registering anywhere. One of the adventurers scoffed, saying that those clan kids just had a narrow view. He added that was why he couldn't sign with a clan either. He asked Kim Il-young what his excuse was, implying he deserved to be stuck there. He assumed that Kim Il-young had a clan, but at best, it was a small clan of beginners, with no real power. Kim Il-young asked if there was a dungeon nearby with E-rank monsters. The adventurer replied that there was, before asking how many people were in his party. Kim Il-young answered that he was planning on going alone. The woman's eyes went wide in shock. Another adventurer chimed in, calling Kim Il-young a newbie. He warned that dungeons were not for soloing, and asked if he had any business there. Kim Il-young looked at the other adventurers with a bored expression. He simply stated that it was their opinion, not his, and clearly didn't care what they thought. The adventurer with the ponytail scoffed, warning that if Kim Il-young died at the entrance, he'd be a nuisance to the next party. He then offered to help him, since he seemed to grow quickly, and suggested he join their party. Kim Il-young crossed his arms, looking more annoyed than grateful. He muttered, questioning who was really going to help who in that situation. Another adventurer, a burly man with a beard, told Kim Il-young to stop joking around. He insisted that the newbie join their party, boasting that they had an almost clan-level composition and systematic hunts, and even offered a 10% increase in profit share. Another adventurer chimed in, saying that their party may be small, but they had lots of beauties. He asked Kim Il-young what he thought, hoping to sway him with the promise of attractive company. The other adventurers started yelling over each other, each trying to get Kim Il-young to join their party. They promised they'd take good care of him if he came with them, trying to pull him in their direction. Another adventurer chimed in, insisting that Kim Il-young should join their fixed party. It was getting pretty noisy, and everyone wanted the new Ronin. Kim Il-young watched them all, his expression unreadable. He figured that different people liked different things, so there was no point in getting too worked up about it. The system was brutal, and it turns out that all the useful rookies were snatched up by large clans like ghosts. It was a feeding frenzy out there. The system warned that A, B, and C rank adventurers were highly sought after. It was a constant battle to find and secure new talent before someone else did. So, these adventurers just gather together with their weird classes and half-heartedly try to farm dungeons. Turns out, they're all E rank, which isn't saying much. But today, for some reason, a talented stray dog is wandering the alleys. Basically, Kim Il-young is out there, and he's a whole different breed. With no clan to call his own, it seems like Kim Il-young is fair game for anyone who wants him. Kim Il-young scoffed, thinking they actually believed that he, who was kicked out by a large clan, would actually join their little fixed parties. Kim Il-young wondered if there was an E-rank dungeon nearby that could handle about 6 people. Turns out, there was one near the Rocky Mountain, full of monsters and all. The doubter asked if Kim Il-young was sure he could handle it alone. He looked genuinely worried, like he knew something Kim didn't. The doubter replied, asking if there was a rule against entering a dungeon alone. He then added that it was just a matter of whether he could make it out alive or not. Kim Il-young replied that there was no problem. He seemed completely unfazed by the doubter's concerns. Kim Il-young added that he could handle the work of 6 people on his own. He looked absolutely confident, like he knew exactly what he was talking about. The doubter replied, saying that there was no problem with that, but it was dangerous. He looked really frustrated, like he couldn't get through to Kim Il-young. The adventurer tried to stop Kim Il-young, telling him to listen to the receptionist and not be so arrogant. He insisted that Kim join their party instead. Kim Il-young didn't even listen to the guy. He cut him off and asked where the Rocky Mountain dungeon was. He just wanted directions. The adventurer asked if he was really sure about this. Kim Il-young gave a thumbs up, looking completely confident. Kim Il-young said he'd be back before it got dark. He acted like it was no big deal at all. Far from the town, the Rocky Mountains loomed in the darkness. The air was cold and still, and the only sound was the wind whistling through the rocks. Kim Il-young walked alone through the dark landscape. The Rocky Mountains loomed ahead, lit only by the faint glow of the moon. Turns out, while the noble lords and chosen adventurers were having their extravagant parties, others were grinding it out. Kim Il-young stared straight ahead, his expression hard. He was completely focused on what he needed to do. Kim Il-young was thinking that he would be leveling up at lightning speed. He was going to leave everyone else in the dust. Kim Il-young noticed deep footprints in the dirt. He figured that meant they were wearing heavy armor, while the lighter ones must be lightly armored or even unarmored. Kim Il-young scanned the rough path ahead. His eyes narrowed. He wondered if anyone else was already trying to get to the dungeon. Kim Il-young stared ahead, his eyes filled with determination. He knew there was only one reason to climb this dangerous mountain, to take over that E-rank dungeon. The rocky path was cracked and dry, with only a small stream cutting through it. It was a tough climb, even for someone as experienced as him. Kim Il-young followed the deep footprints in the dirt. He figured they would lead him straight to the dungeon entrance. The jagged peaks loomed in the distance, their dark shapes cutting into the sky. The whole place felt dangerous, like anything could be lurking just out of sight. The mountain pass was narrow and steep, but there was a faint light ahead. It seemed to be coming from the entrance to the dungeon itself. As he got closer, he could see figures standing near the entrance. A group of adventurers had already arrived. Kim Il-young sighed. Turns out there were people ahead of him after all. Kim Il-young wondered what he should do now. It's not like he could just find another dungeon at this point. Suddenly, one of the adventurers turned around, looking surprised. The adventurers turned to look at Kim Il-young, studying him carefully. One of them spoke up, demanding to know who he was. Kim Il-young didn't even flinch at their stares. He asked if they were there to clear the dungeon. He added that he had come alone, like it was no big deal. One of the adventurers, a guy with short hair, looked at Kim Il-young like he was crazy. He asked if he was suicidal, if he was trying to die in the dungeon. Kim Il-young just stood there, listening to them talk. He didn't seem bothered at all by their concerns. A female adventurer stepped forward, a smirk on her face. She said he must be a newbie F-rank adventurer. She wondered if the test dungeon was too easy for him, because he was acting all arrogant. Kim Il-young thought to himself that they didn't seem to know what was really going on yet. He wondered if they even realized that his batch had faced the hardest certification dungeon ever. One of the adventurers stepped up, telling the rookie that this was an E-rank dungeon. He insisted that they were there first, so he should just leave and not waste their time. The other adventurer just yelled for him to get going. The adventurer kept yelling, demanding that he leave right now. Kim Da-young stepped in, telling the other adventurer to calm down. She said they could at least hear his story. She then told someone named Park to get lost, clearly annoyed. Kim Il-young realized that Kim Da-young must be the party leader. Kim Da-young spoke up, asking if he was a new F-rank adventurer. She told him it was dangerous, and that he should join a party to start with a F-rank dungeon. Kim Il Il-yong told her that he appreciated her concern, but he was confident he could clear it on his own, which was why he came there. One of the adventurers laughed, saying that these rookies didn't know their place. He added that it was no wonder the death rate of beginner adventurers was skyrocketing every year. Kim Da-young then spoke, telling someone named Park to please stop. Park then pointed at Kim Il-yong, singling him out. He looked serious, like he was about to say something important. Park spoke, observing that Kim Il-yong seemed to have no intention of backing down. The air grew thick with tension. The adventurers all stared up at Kim Il-yong, waiting for him to react. He seemed unfazed by their threats, his expression unreadable. Kim Il-yong stared at them, asking if they were planning to chase him away by force. He didn't seem scared at all, but he was definitely ready for a fight. He narrowed his eyes, focusing on the group in front of him. The air grew heavy with anticipation, as if something big was about to happen. Suddenly, the new adventurer gripped the hilt of his sword. His knuckles turned white, showing how tense he was. Park spoke up, saying that since Kim Il-yong had already come up there was no other choice. He looked serious, like he was making a final offer. The adventurers all started begging Kim Il-yong to join their dungeon party. They were seriously desperate, especially their leader. One of the adventurers scoffed, wondering why they were even dealing with a nobody like Kim Il-yong. He figured they were just asking for trouble and would probably get what they deserved. The new adventurer stared at the group, but he didn't say anything. He just asked what they were going to do next, waiting for someone to make a decision. He thought about just leaving, wondering if it was even worth the trouble. Maybe he should just go down the mountain and find a different group. But then he considered another option, just knock everyone out and go into the dungeon by himself. The thought crossed his mind, and he seemed ready to act on it. Suddenly, the system flashed a notification, telling Kim Il-yong that he shouldn't be a lonely loser. It was a quest to make allies, promising a reward of 175 XP and a secret elixir if he could get 30 party members. Kim Da-young's eyes widened as he considered the system's offer. He stared intensely, trying to make a decision about whether to accept the quest or not. He steeled his gaze, a new determination washing over him. He wasn't going to be a loser. He was going to get those allies and that sweet EXP. The system seemed to whisper promises of untold power. The reward for this quest? A secret elixir, and not just one, but two of them. He held the potion in his hands, examining the dark liquid. The system identified it as a low-grade potion from the Amifa clan, claiming it could enhance inner power. The system's description of the potion triggered a dark memory. It was the same kind of potion that led to his throat getting cut in the Murim world. He remembered the moment clearly, standing back to back with a bald comrade, facing down a group of assassins. The tension was heavy, the air thick with the smell of blood and sweat. He had fought so hard for that potion, risked everything to obtain it, but ultimately, it was a treasured item he couldn't even taste as he lay dying in the dirt. Kim Il-yong thought about the quest to gather allies. Hildegrin's hero-centric attitude could be annoying, but he had to admit the guy had a point. Kim Il-yong stared ahead, thinking hard. If the quest provided potions like the one he knew, maybe he'd reconsider joining the group. The woman behind him just smiled, waiting for his answer. The system then displayed the potential rewards. Martial arts items were included, which got his attention. There was armor, ginseng, and even more potions. The system was basically asking if he could get rewards like dragon scale armor or 1,000-year underwater ginseng. The possibilities were insane. The other man was waiting for an answer, looking impatient. Kim Il-yong paused for a second, then said he'd accept the quest. The man's eyes widened, clearly surprised by the quick change of heart. He just stared blankly. A voice called out, suggesting that they should all enter together. Kim Il-yong posed for a second, then thought to himself that they must want him to take the elixir. The entrance to the dungeon loomed ahead, swirling with strange purple energy. It looked pretty dangerous. The group of adventurers marched forward, ready to enter the dungeon. They looked like they were ready for anything. Suddenly, one of the women held her hand over her nose, looking disgusted. She asked what that smell was. The disgusted adventurer held her hand over her nose, trying to block the stench. She gagged and complained about the smell of waste, pointing out that the monsters had smeared feces all over the walls. That's just nasty. Another adventurer looked around, trying to ignore the smell. He observed that the dungeon was actually pretty spacious, much larger than it appeared from the outside. The observing woman narrowed her eyes, clearly annoyed. The whole situation seemed to be getting on her nerves. The greedy adventurer started complaining immediately. He whined that they now had to divide the loot among 7 people, which meant less for everyone else. The annoyed adventurer joined in, complaining about having to bring a beginner along. He grumbled that it was so annoying. anything. Kim Il-young tried to calm the other adventurer, telling her not to pay attention to what those people were saying. He insisted that he wasn't bothered by their complaints. Kim Il-young leaned in slightly, as if sharing a secret with the other adventurer. He whispered that it was a secret. Turns out, the other adventurers couldn't find a party for various reasons. No one wanted them. The party leader felt bad for them and let them join the group. He told them not to be disheartened. Kim Il-young thanked the other adventurer for the kind words. He promised that he'd pull his weight and wouldn't be a burden. Kim Il-young thought to himself that he could easily do the work of 6 people. He was that good, no doubt about it. Kim Il-young then asked what he should call the party leader. He realized he hadn't even introduced himself yet. Lee Desum introduced herself as a healing priestess, adding that she was a blooming 29-year-old. She seemed a little embarrassed by that description. Lee Desum paused for a moment, as if gathering her courage. She was about to ask a question that had clearly been on her mind. Lee Desum asked what the various reasons were for not being able to find a party. Turns out, it was because of rumors. Lee Desum seemed surprised, questioning the mention of rumors. She tilted her head slightly, waiting for an explanation. Kim Il-young listened carefully. He wanted to know what kind of mess he was walking into. The speaker paused for a moment, building suspense. This was clearly something they didn't want everyone to know. Turns out, Kim Da-young had a bit of a reputation. The speaker explained that she had lost a rare artifact containing lightning magic when she was with her old party. And since Kim Da-young's class was a thief, people were suspicious. Kim Il-young's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected to hear something like that, so that's why they were having trouble finding party members. The words hung in the air, a lightning artifact. It sounded like a big deal, and Kim Il-young wondered if this was the real reason for the party's bad luck. Someone else chimed in, saying they'd suspect the rude person first. Then they pointed out the archer, mentioning that he was the only survivor after his entire party got wiped out. The speaker emphasized that an archer's job was to scout and keep the party safe. So how did he end up being the only one to make it out alive? The speaker figured the archer either had a terrible past or just the worst luck imaginable. Either way, it was a bad sign. Someone else spoke up, asking about the party leader. They admitted they hadn't been with the group long enough to know much. One of the adventurers wondered if the party leader was a good person, considering how he took in people with nowhere else to go. But the other one wasn't so sure, thinking he could be someone with a dark side. The man's expression hardened as he thought that the party leader could be someone with a dark heart. He didn't trust him at all. Another adventurer snapped, telling someone to shut up. He didn't want them advertising their presence to the monsters by being so noisy. The adventurer grumbled that he was already struggling to pay off his magic equipment loans. More people meant more sharing, which just made things more frustrating. The group seemed to agree on one thing. That rude person was really starting to get on their nerves. The adventurer looked at Kim Il-young, waiting for him to speak up. He asked if Kim Il-young wasn't going to introduce himself to the group. Kim Il-young spoke up, introducing himself to the group. He said his name was Kim Il-young, that he was 24 years old, and that his class was Ronin. The adventurer seemed surprised to hear about Kim Il-young's class. He muttered that there was a Ronin class as well, clearly not expecting that. Suddenly, Tae-seok shouted, interrupting the introductions. He announced that he had spotted enemies up ahead, his voice full of urgency. The others turned to Tae-seok, waiting for more information. He said there were about 12 of them, and judging by the lack of heavy sounds, most of them were lightly armored. The party leader sized up the situation, deciding on a strategy. He told Dasum to provide support, and Tae-seok to suppress the enemy with his bow. He then told Seok-do to grab his greatsword and stay by his side. The leader then turned to Kim Il-young, asking him to protect Dasum and the porters. He added sarcastically that Kim Il-young would be playing the role of a shield. Ahead, a pack of wolf-like monsters emerged from the shadows. They were heavily armed and armored, ready for a fight. Tae-seok drew back his bow, aiming at the monsters. He shouted that they had to strike first to win. The arrow shot forward like a bolt of lightning, piercing through the air. It flew straight toward the monsters, ready to tear through their ranks. The party leader looked down at the fallen monster, holding his sword high. He declared that one was down for now, but there were still more to deal with. The monster lay still on the ground, defeated, but all around it, more of the wolf-like beasts were ready to tear them apart. Suddenly, one of the monsters roared, its fangs bared. The sound echoed through the dungeon, a promise of violence. With a deafening roar, the monsters charged forward, their eyes filled with bloodlust. They were ready to rip apart anyone who stood in their way. Arrows rained down on the monsters, but many bounced harmlessly off their shields. The archer's attack wasn't doing enough to stop the horde. The pack of monsters surged forward, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground. They were like a furry wall of muscle and steel, shields raised and teeth bared, ready to crush anything in their path. The monsters roared, the sound echoing through the dungeon. It was a deafening challenge, a promise of pain and death to anyone who dared stand against them. The party leader screamed, bracing himself behind his shield. He knew what was coming, and the thought of it terrified him. The party leader swung his sword, hoping to break through the monster's defenses. He put all his strength into the blow, desperate to make a difference. The two adventurers ran for their lives, their faces pale with terror. They knew they were outmatched, and their only hope was to escape the horde. That adventurer screamed that he was done for. Everything was about to end for him, right there. Kim Il-yong swung his sword with everything he had. He didn't even hesitate, hoping to cut through the monsters. The monsters swarmed him, their claws and teeth ready to tear him apart. It was a hopeless situation, but he didn't back down. Suddenly, a ball of pure energy slammed into one of the monsters. It exploded on impact, sending the beast flying backwards. The rest of the monsters kept coming, their eyes fixed on their prey. They were a relentless horde, impossible to stop. The leader stood tall, his expression confident as he looked at his followers. He announced that 2 were already down, a sign of their quick victory. The strike landed hard, and the enemy yelled in pain. He cursed at the attacker, calling him a little scumbag. The enemy's face was twisted with fury, sweat dripping down his forehead. He gripped his axe tightly, ready to swing. One of the enemies yelled at the other, calling him a dimwit. He shouted that he should have worn chainmail armor. The other enemy fired back, clearly frustrated. He asked if the guy thought money grew on trees, complaining about the cost of armor. The force of the axes colliding sent sparks flying everywhere, lighting up the dark cave. It was a brutal back and forth, neither side willing to give an inch. Lee Da-sum closed her eyes and put her hands together, starting to pray. She asked the divine being to grant healing and devotion in that place. Then, Lee Da-sum shouted, declaring that the healing was about to begin. Suddenly, a huge beam of light, shaped like a cross, shined down from above, healing the injured adventurers. The light washed over the battlefield, giving them a much-needed boost. One of the adventurers turned to Lee Da-sum with a grateful smile, thanking her for the healing. The wounds on his shoulder were already starting to close up. Kim Il-yong shouted, ready to jump into the fight. He was pumped up and ready to go. The other adventurers were already deep in the fight, axes and swords clashing against the enemy. Sparks flew everywhere as they fought as a team. Kim Il-yong realized that their skill level was way different from the novice adventurers he had seen in the Dungeon of Proof. These guys actually knew what they were doing. Kim Il-yong thought to himself that this was what it was like to fight with a party of veteran E-rank adventurers. He was starting to see the difference. Kim Il-yong couldn't believe that even just standing there, the missions were getting done, and he was getting experience points. He was getting stronger just by being around them. The system showed the party was making progress. Kim Il-yong thought to himself that party hunting wasn't so bad, after all. Kim Il-yong was about to say they should keep reaping the benefits like this, but then he suddenly stopped, looking surprised. Suddenly, a bunch of monsters appeared, yelling something about Karakam Dioku. They looked absolutely pissed. The monsters roared, their fangs bared. They were ready to tear anyone apart. A monster lunged forward, claws extended. Someone screamed in pain as the attack landed. The monster leaped forward, claws extended and tongue lolling out. It was a terrifying sight, like something out of a nightmare. The party leader shouted that he couldn't let them escape. He looked absolutely furious, like this was personal. Lee Da-sum clasped her hands together, a worried look on her face. She was probably thinking about how to heal everyone if things went south. The monsters roared, focusing their attacks on Lee Da-sum, who was busy trying to cast healing spells. They knew she was the key to keeping everyone alive. Kim Il-yong's eyes narrowed with determination. He wasn't going to let those monsters hurt his new party, not if he could help it. Kim Il-yong said that it was a brilliant decision. He seemed to be sizing up the situation, ready to act. Kim Il-yong added that it would be a good plan if he wasn't there. He looked absolutely confident. The wolf-like monsters snarled, their eyes glowing with a hunger for blood. They were closing in, their growls echoing through the cave. Da-sum froze, clearly terrified by the monsters. Kim Il-yong told her to run away, his voice full of urgency. Kim Il-yong held his sword ready, his gaze fixed on the monsters. He figured that since ancient times, it's been said that a mad dog needs a beating. Kim Il-yong's eyes narrowed, his body tensing up. He thought it was time for a quick smack, his sword poised to strike. Kim Il-yong unleashed a flurry of strikes, his movements a blur of speed and power. It was 18 windless strikes, each blow carrying the force of a small explosion. Kim Il-yong stared coldly, a smirk playing on his lips. He figured that if a dog bites a person, it's only natural. Kim Il-yong unleashed the wind-cutting sword technique, his movements becoming even faster. It was the first form, swift strike. The The essence of a swift strike, he knew, was a rapid, single strike, infused with the spirit of exhilaration. Kim Il-yong moved like lightning, aiming for the monster's weak spot. The monsters roared, their claws slashing through the air. The sound of their attack echoed through the cave, a terrifying symphony of violence. Kim Il-yong knew that to achieve this lightning-fast speed, the sword had to be blunt and straightforward. As a result, it was easy to break after swinging it a few times. The space around them crackled with purple energy. The air itself seemed to vibrate with barely controlled strength. Kim Il-yong knew that if a warrior's sword moves are easy to read, it's basically a death sentence. The monsters were getting used to his attacks. One of the monsters lunged forward, claws extended. The attack was meant to tear him apart. The monsters roared, their fangs bared. They were ready to rip him to shreds. Kim Il-yong looked completely caught off guard. What the hell was going on? The monster snarled, ready to tear Kim Il-yong apart. But Kim Il-yong wasn't scared at all. He warned the monster that it had made a huge mistake, and the only one going to hell was the monster itself. Kim Il-yong didn't waste any time. He threw a punch with all his strength, connecting right with the monster's face. The sound of the impact echoed through the cave. He didn't stop there. Kim Il-yong kept hitting the monster, each strike filled with explosive power. The monster was getting absolutely destroyed. The other adventurers watched in disbelief. One of them muttered that this kid was beating a monster with his bare hands. He couldn't believe that an E-rank monster was getting beat like a dog. The monster was a mess. Its face was covered in blood, and it could barely stand. Kim Il-yong had completely wrecked it. The system chimed in, saying his octagonal fist proficiency had slightly increased. Each punch was getting stronger and more effective. Kim Il-yong kept up the pressure, not giving the monster any room to breathe. He was determined to end this fight quickly. One of the adventurers watched, absolutely stunned. He thought to himself that Kim Il-yong was beating the monster so well. It was refreshing. He wondered who Kim Il-yong was, and if he was the new recruit. The adventurer thanked Kim Il-yong for saving her. She was glad to see someone who knew how to be polite. Kim Il-yong told her not to mention it, saying protecting them was his duty. He admitted that this whole situation was honestly beyond his expectations, and then introduced himself as adventurer Kim Il-yong. The adventurer asked how Kim Il-yong knew her name. She remembered him talking with Dusum earlier. She admitted that when he said he came to an E-rank dungeon alone, she thought it was just a beginner's bluff. She realized that Kim Il-yong was a skilled adventurer. Kim Il-yong replied that he just got lucky. He said that if she felt uncomfortable when their group treated him like a beginner earlier, he apologized on their behalf because he was a beginner who just came to Pangea. The adventurer asked what kind of newcomer could play with 6 gnolls like that. He asked if today was really his first day in Pangea, and then seriously demanded to know what his deal was. The adventurer stared at Kim Il-yong, and then asked if he was an outsider hiding his identity after committing murder. The adventurer remembered Kim Il-yong mentioning his class was unique. Now that he thought about it, wasn't it the only class? Then, it made sense that he was this strong. The adventurer admitted he was jealous of Kim Il-yong's unique skills and power. The adventurer eyed Kim Il-yong suspiciously, wondering why someone with a unique class would wander around without a clan. Kim Il-yong admitted that he had some issues with those clan guys, but didn't elaborate. The party leader stepped in, reminding everyone that they all had their own stories. He suggested they move on, saying that having someone as strong as Kim Il-yong in their party was a good thing. He looked at the group, hoping he was right. The other adventurers agreed, the tension slowly fading. The party leader declared the introductions over and asked the porters to take care of the cleanup. The porters quickly responded, eager to get to work. Kim Il-yong looked puzzled, wondering what they meant by cleanup. He had a feeling he was about to find out. The cave was huge, the ceiling disappearing into the darkness high above. It looked like the cleanup was going to be a big job. The porters started cleaning up the monster corpses, a grim but necessary task. The air hung heavy with the smell of blood and death. The party member asked if the monster parts had any value. Kim Il-yong explained that these creatures contained mana, which could be melted and reforged into armor or weapons. The party member then inquired about the gnoll teeth, and Kim Il-yong explained that they could be used for magic and potions. He added that the value of the equipment depended on the purity and conductivity of the mana, as well as the material of the defeated monster. One of the party members wondered if an iron sword was made on Earth, asking if there was a difference between Earth-made and Pangea-made equipment. Kim Il-yong admitted that Earth-made stuff was more comfortable and looked nicer. Kim Il-yong added that Earth-made equipment was expensive, which was a big problem. He said that Pangea-made equipment could be defective and itchy, and the finish could be messy. He recalled that the brutal wind cape he wore back in his unique class days reeked of a foul stench, implying he could handle a little itchiness and a rat smell. Kim Il-young remembered that even the hairband he wore back then leaked rainwater. He explained that any equipment of legend, rank, and above was made in Pangea. He added that people from Earth hadn't been able to copy that level of craftsmanship yet. Kim Il-young paused, then asked if someone had found something. He looked up, curious about what they had discovered. Someone gasped, recognizing what they were looking at. It was a mana stone, embedded in the chest of the creature. The mana stone pulsed with a soft blue light, almost like it was alive. Kim Il-young was surprised and shouted, wondering if it really was a mana stone. The other adventurer was excited about their lucky find. He said that free money was always welcome. The party leader then asked what grade of mana stone it was. The party leader looked closely at the stone, his expression thoughtful. He explained that the particles inside were tiny and few, so it was probably the lowest grade. One of the adventurers asked why the party leader sounded so disappointed. He pointed out that even the lowest grade was worth a lot of money. He then wondered why a mana stone was even in an E-rank dungeon in the first place. The other adventurer told him to just enjoy it and think about the money. The party leader then said that a low-rank monster dropping a mana stone could be a sign of a dungeon break. He added that as an archer, it was his job to ensure the team's safety. The archer tried to calm the other adventurer down, placing a hand on his shoulder. He told him to relax, and that they weren't interested in his guilt, whatever that meant. The adventurer didn't seem to relax at all. His face was covered in sweat, and his eyes darted around nervously, like he was expecting something bad to happen. Kim Il-young turned to the party leader, Dasam, and asked what a dungeon break was. Dasam paused, looking thoughtful. Dasam explained that there were times when the dungeon master's power grew stronger on a certain cycle. She said that when that happened, the dungeon got filled with magic, and the monsters became more powerful and numerous. Dasam continued, explaining that if it reached a critical point, the monsters would burst out like a broken dam, threatening the city with a massive wave. The other adventurers asked why they couldn't just destroy the dungeon before it exploded. The archer explained that dungeons kept coming back because of the dungeon master's power. He added that even if they destroyed the dungeons, they would just reappear. He figured it was better to manage them than to try to get rid of them completely. He also mentioned that the porters might have a better idea. The archer told the others not to ruin the mood, pointing out that the others were still fighting. He seemed to want to lighten the mood a little. The archer asked if anyone had noticed anything strange earlier. He explained that monsters with a mana stone sometimes evolved into something stronger. Kim Il-young mentioned that he had just sliced its neck in one hit, so he hadn't noticed anything. The archer asked if there was a problem. Kim Il-young said no, telling him not to worry about it. The archer wondered if an E-rank monster could actually evolve into a D-rank monster. The archer told everyone to get back into formation so they could move forward. He looked determined to get through the rest of the dungeon. The cave was quiet for a moment, but it wouldn't last. He steeled himself, knowing something was about to happen. The archer said that the goblins must have caught the scent of the ones they defeated earlier. He figured their sense of smell was like a dog's. He estimated there were about 20 of them, but one was making unusually loud footsteps. The archer figured it had to be a wolf chieftain, adding that it might have lived longer if it had stayed put in the boss room. He said their battle strategy would remain the same. Desum would draw the boss's attention while the rest of them took care of the mob, and then they'd regroup. One of the adventurers hoped another mana stone would drop. The other one scoffed, saying that wasn't going to happen easily, but the first one replied that you never know. Suddenly, a massive howl echoed through the cave. One of the adventurers looked terrified, wondering if it was really a wolf chieftain. He was worried it could be a wolf warlord instead. A guttural growl echoed through the cave, sending chills down everyone's spines. The sound was coming from a pack of wolf-like creatures, their eyes glowing menacingly in the darkness. The adventurer scanned the area, his sword at the ready. He wondered where the boss was hiding. The archer was getting frustrated, saying he didn't see the boss anywhere. He added that it was impossible since they had just heard that terrifying howl. He wondered where the boss was hiding. The wolves snarled, their fangs bared and ready to strike, their eyes burned with a savage hunger. The leader shouted for everyone to focus on the wolves in front of them. She then called out to Il-young, asking him to help out. The archer aimed his arrow directly at Il-young, his face set with a grim determination. He didn't even hesitate, ready to shoot him down without warning. Il-young didn't even flinch. In a flash, he deflected the arrow with a powerful strike, sending it flying away. The force of the impact echoed through the cave. The wolves didn't stand a chance. Il-young stood in the middle of the carnage, surrounded by the bodies of the dead wolves. It was a clean sweep, The system popped up, showing the party's hunting progress. It showed they had cleared 20 out of 30 monsters. One of the adventurers couldn't believe what he just saw. He wondered what level Il-yang was, since he made it look so easy. The battlefield was a whirlwind of chaos, with monsters screaming as they were cut down. The party fought with everything they had, trying to hold their ground against the endless waves of enemies. Kim Il-yang's face was set with pure determination. He was focused on the fight, ready to do whatever it took to win. The healer closed her eyes and put her hands together. She prayed that the benevolent touch of Jimisen would heal them all. A blinding light flashed across the battlefield as the healer cast Cure. The party members felt their wounds closing, their strength returning. Kim Il-yang dodged another strike and smirked. He thought this was too easy, but in that moment, he felt a sharp pain. The sudden shift in the dungeon's atmosphere was unsettling. All three members of the party looked around, trying to understand what was happening and what it meant for them. The adventurer was down, lying on the cold stone floor. He was out of the fight, his sword lying uselessly beside him. A massive, hulking monster stood before them, radiating power. It was bigger and meaner than anything they had faced so far. Desum stared at the monster, his eyes wide with disbelief. He realized it wasn't just a wolf chieftain, but something far worse. He wondered how a wolf warlord could appear in an E-rank dungeon, and what a monostone was doing there in the first place. The wolf warlord roared with fury, its teeth bared and its eyes glowing red. It was ready to tear them all apart. The wolf warlord was huge, easily twice the size of the wolf chieftain they had fought before. It was like something out of a nightmare, ready to tear them apart. The wolf warlord snarled, a deep growl rumbling in its chest. You could feel the raw power radiating off it, a promise of violence about to be unleashed. The archer shouted, trying to warn everyone, asking where on earth the guy was hiding. He explained that the new threat appeared right after a light burst in the corner, and he suspected some kind of invisibility skill. The wolf warlord roared that it would chew them up, demanding they dodge. It was moving fast, ready to tear into anyone who couldn't get out of the way. The wolf warlord charged forward, its massive frame shaking the ground. The adventurers scattered, trying to avoid the beast's path. An adventurer urged another strike, warning that even a graze from the creature would be trouble. He told his teammate to stop talking and attack again. The man stared up at the wolf warlord, his eyes widening. He was shocked, realizing there was no protection above the creature's neck. He wondered what kind of monster they were dealing with. The wolf warlord lunged forward, claws extended. It was moving with surprising speed, a blur of fur and teeth aimed right at the adventurers. The wolf warlord continued its assault, forcing the adventurers to scramble out of the way. The monster was relentless, not giving them a moment to breathe. High above, the wolf warlord was still on the attack, tearing through the dungeon. But below, the archer notched an arrow, preparing to strike. The man swung his weapon, putting all his strength into the blow. The wolf warlord roared in pain, the sound echoing through the dungeon. Il-yang didn't hesitate. He swung his sword with all his might, a flash of metal against the dim light. At the same time, the wolf warlord lunged forward, its claws tearing through the air. Il-yang poured all his energy into a punch, his fist glowing with power. The force behind it was enough to make the air ripple. The wolf warlord snarled, its fangs bared in a vicious display. It was clearly not happy about taking that hit. The wolf warlord's claws connected, slamming into Il-yang. The impact sent shockwaves through his body. The monster roared in triumph, its breath hot and foul. Suddenly, a shout echoed through the dungeon. It was Otai Seoke, yelling his own name at the top of his lungs. What the hell was he doing? Otai Seok spotted something. He yelled, full of fury, "That bastard!" The wolf warlord didn't waste a second. It lunged forward, claws extended, striking with incredible speed. Otai Seok realized how bad this was. He understood that with that much force, even one hit from the wolf warlord could be lethal. Daesum looked completely shocked. Darn it, she thought. Where did it come from? The wolf warlord roared with fury, its fangs bared and its eyes burning with rage. Otai Seok moved with incredible speed, leaving streaks of light as he attacked the wolf warlord. He thought to himself that one flash wouldn't be enough. The wolf warlord dared to make a big move. It exposed its weak point, the neck, right in front of the enemy. Otai Seok couldn't believe it. How dare the wolf warlord expose its weakness in front of a swift sword master? He wasn't going to waste this chance. Otai Seok didn't hesitate. He struck with all his might, aiming for the exposed neck. The wolf warlord crashed to the ground, defeated. Otai Seok stood over the fallen beast, ready for whatever came next. Otai Seok struck with incredible speed, his sword a blur of motion. The force of the blow ripped through the air, heading straight for the wolf warlord. The strike landed with a deafening crash, shattering the ground beneath them. Rocks and dust flew everywhere as the wolf warlord took the full force of the blow. The wolf warlord roared in pain and disbelief. What just happened? Otai stood calmly, his sword held loosely at his side. He was ready for anything. Otai smirked, looking pleased with himself. He said that this was the power of a martial artist. The wolf warlord roared, a sound of pure fury that shook the very air around them. It was clear that the warlord was not happy about what had just happened. The wolf warlord's face contorted in rage, its teeth bared in a vicious snarl. You could see the pure hatred burning in its eyes. The ground was littered with the fallen. Something was wrong. These weren't just dead bodies. They were being twisted into something far more sinister. A horrifying scream ripped through the air, the sound of something that should be dead, but wasn't. It was a sound that chilled you to the bone. Otai looked absolutely shocked. He asked what this was, seeing the undead creatures rising around him. A horrifying shriek echoed through the cavern as the undead creatures surged forward. They were everywhere, their grotesque forms filling the space around the warrior. The warrior stood his ground, his eyes narrowed as he assessed the creatures surrounding him. He realized they weren't even Jiangshi, which made the situation even stranger. Otai looked around in alarm. He shouted that they'd turned these guys into undead and wondered if there was a necromancer nearby. He immediately ordered Desum to bless the weapons. Desum closed her eyes, her hands clasped together in prayer. She begged the merciful Mother Earth to bestow her grace upon their weapons. A surge of divine energy coursed through the weapons, bathing them in a brilliant, holy light. The system announced that they were now holy weapons. The sword was now glowing with holy light, blessed by Dasum's magic. Otai stared at the blade, feeling the surge of power coursing through it. The others stood ready, their blessed weapons gleaming in the dim light of the cavern. Each of them gripped their weapon tightly, waiting for the attack to begin. With a horrifying roar, the undead creatures charged towards them. Otai yelled for everyone to get ready, bracing himself for the coming onslaught. The lead creature lunged forward, its eyes burning with a malevolent green light, its claws extended, ready to tear into anyone who stood in its path. Otai looked absolutely furious. He couldn't believe these pests dared to show their faces. The creature screamed that they were gonna die. Kim Il-yong realized that at this rate, things were getting too dangerous. The monster's roar echoed through the cavern, shaking the very ground. Kim Il-yong stared intently, his expression unreadable as he watched the beast. Kim Il-yong shouted that he was going to give it his all and go for it. He charged forward, a blur of motion against the monstrous foe. Kim Il-yong explained that striking the same spot twice hurt them the most. He unleashed his one flash wind slash, a technique he'd honed over years of brutal combat. Suddenly, the system announced that the quest was complete, telling him to claim his reward. The battle was over. Kim Il-yong stood over the corpse of the wolf, staring down at it. He thought to himself that this was what real martial arts felt like, a power he hadn't truly understood until now. The wolf-headed monster lay dead on the ground, its teeth bared in a final, silent snarl. The air was thick with the smell of blood and the stench of death. Kim Il-yong stared intently at something. His eyes narrowed. A cold smile played on his lips, a hint of the ruthless warrior he once was. The scene felt familiar to him. A figure stood amidst a field of corpses, a grim reminder of battles past. The only difference was that it wasn't a human he was facing this time, but a wolf-headed creature. The monster's eyes glowed with a feral intensity. The man was shocked by the speed of the sword. He wondered what kind of sword was that fast, before realizing it was a swift strike. The undead creatures started to crumble. Their bodies turned into dust, and their bones fell apart, leaving nothing behind. The man watched as the undead fell apart. He was confused and wondered what was happening to them. Turns out, the leader of the 1,000 demons was a spellcaster. That was the secret to their power. The man explained that normally, a control curse loses its effect when the caster or the medium dies. It was a basic rule of magic. The others thanked Kim Il-yong for his help. It seemed he had played a key role in defeating the undead. Kim Il-yong waved off the thanks. He said it was nothing, just party members helping each other out, as they should. Kim Il-yong stared intently. His eyes narrowed. He was focused on something, but it wasn't clear what had caught his attention. Kim Il-yong wondered aloud if the 1,000 demon leader was weak. He even asked if the leader had been recently promoted. The other man listened, arms crossed. Kim Il-young added that the fight had been easier than he thought it would be, especially considering how the others reacted. He seemed suspicious. Kim Il-young pointed in a certain direction and said, "Over there." Someone responded, asking for confirmation. Kim Il-young stood with his arms crossed, looking at the other man. He told him to just say what he wanted to say, without holding back. Oh Tae-seok explained that the woman wanted to thank Kim Il-young for saving her, but she was too embarrassed to say it directly. She was just stuttering instead. The woman, clearly annoyed, told Oh Tae-seok to shut up and called him an idiot. Kim Il-young realized what was going on and said, "So that's what it was." Kim Il-young dismissed the situation, telling her not to worry about it. He said it was just a normal thing to do as a party member. The man agreed, but added that it was only natural in a genuine party built on trust. He implied that in a temporary party like theirs, things were different. The man on the right huffed, telling them to do whatever they wanted. He was clearly irritated. The woman and the other man stood behind him, watching the scene unfold. The man looked absolutely furious, his face contorted in anger. He shouted that the other man's statement was rude. Silence filled the cavern. The only sound was the echo of their voices bouncing off the stone walls. Lying on a piece of cloth were the spoils of their adventure: a red stone, a blue stone, and a simple ring. The man announced that it was time to sort out what they had gotten from the dungeon. He seemed ready to move on from the argument. The party leader held up the scroll. It was covered in strange glowing symbols that pulsed with a faint light. Someone asked the party leader what he was holding. He explained that it was an intermediate appraisal scroll. The party leader revealed that the scroll was worth 1,000,000 won. He seemed surprised by how ridiculously expensive it was. The system displayed the attributes of the items: mana stones of low grade and a ring of feral invisibility, which slightly increased the wearer's strength and allowed the use of the invisibility skill for 3 minutes, but only 5 times. The system confirmed that it was, as expected, a low-grade mana stone. The blonde guy looked surprised. He figured that the leader of the 100 demons must have been promoted to 1,000 demon leader. The man with the scar looked serious. He explained that it wasn't the lowest grade, but just low, so the price was usually around 30 million won. He kept going, pointing out that the small mana stone was worth the price of a medium-sized car. He seemed impressed by the value. The man with the scar paused, then said that wasn't all. This ring, being a rare grade and an uncommon accessory-type artifact, was probably worth between 60 and 70 million won. He looked impressed. The group cheered, realizing they'd hit the jackpot. They were all smiles and high spirits, celebrating their good fortune. The party leader looked annoyed by the commotion. He told everyone to calm down, reminding them that they needed to discuss how to split up the loot first. On a white cloth lay their prizes from the dungeon: 2 shimmering mana stones, 1 red and 1 blue, and a silver ring that pulsed with a faint light. The items seemed to glow with power. The party leader looked down at the loot, calculating the total value. He announced that, including the miscellaneous items, the total came to about 120 million won. One of the party members looked impressed. He commented that it was an impressive amount for just 1 day of work. The blonde man nodded in agreement. He said that it was an abnormal income, but then again, the dungeon they explored was also abnormal, right? One of the party members bragged about their success. He said that even though they might have a bad reputation, they still cleared the dungeon because they were so skilled. The speaker continued, saying that if another party had tried to clear the dungeon, they might have been wiped out. He was serious. Another party member chimed in, looking concerned. He wondered if all dungeons were in such a dangerous state, and if so, the monster waves could be pretty bad. The female party member didn't seem to care. She said that it wasn't their business. One of the men looked at the party leader, eager to get paid. He told him that he had to tell them their share now, sounding impatient. The party leader looked thoughtful as he considered the numbers. He figured that after deducting the porter's wages and the 20% tax for Illidel and the Earth, they could split the remaining amount into 6 parts. One of the men scoffed, clearly annoyed by the tax deductions. He wondered what the country had ever done for them to justify taking away 20%. He then suggested that if it bothered them so much, they should become A-class adventurers and get a tax exemption. The party leader then announced that each person would get about 16 million won. He paused, then added that it wasn't bad. Kim Il-young stared blankly, thinking about the money. He thought that 16 million won was a significant amount, but it was still pretty depressing compared to the initial 120 million they had heard about. Another adventurer spoke. spoke up, directing his question at the party leader. He wondered if that worthless iron ring was really that expensive. The adventurer watched his companion. The guy looked pretty worn out, like he was about to collapse right there. Otai Seok's face tightened. He looked like he was thinking about something really hard. Someone explained that even though it's just a piece of armor, there are 10 places to wear a ring-type artifact, which makes them expensive. An invisibility ring looked really tempting. The thought of being able to just disappear was on someone's mind. Someone raised their voice to get everyone's attention. They had something important to say. The party leader smiled, looking at his team. He told them they all worked hard today. He added that they managed to hold out without anyone getting hurt, even though it was chaotic with the appearance of the 1,000-man commander. The party leader held up a small bottle. He said he would treat them to this low-grade potion. The leader explained that everyone should have a bottle in case there were internal injuries. One of the guys thanked the party leader. He said that it was just in time. His pierced wound was aching, and he'd drink it right away. The man brought the potion to his lips. He said he wasn't going to refuse anything free. He added that the potion tasted like a mix of red ginseng and herbal medicine. The man grimaced after swallowing the potion. He said that they say good medicine tastes bitter. The man frowned, tilting his head slightly. He wondered if the potion was supposed to taste this sweet. Suddenly, the man clutched at his chest, his face contorted in pain. He coughed violently, and blood splattered on the ground. The man groaned, collapsing onto the cavern floor. He was clearly in agony, struggling to breathe. Kim Il-yong was taken by surprise at the sudden turn of events. He wondered what was going on. Another man glared, pointing a shaky finger. He demanded to know what the party leader had given them. The party leader stood tall, looking down at the adventurers, who were now lying helpless on the ground. The silence was broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing. The party leader grinned, a sinister expression on his face. He commented that the poison was quite deadly. He remarked that, as expected, outsiders make at least one good item. The other party members looked absolutely stunned, their faces etched with disbelief and horror. They were clearly shocked by the party leader's words. He asked them what he had given them, then revealed it was a potion concentrated with mana poison. A narration box appeared, noting that the main character had the devil's luck. No matter how strong an adventurer was, consuming the poison would mess up their mana. The adventurer gasped for air, clutching at his throat. He cried out that it was mana poison. The leader clicked his tongue, remarking that it was an useless struggle. The leader's grin widened. He stated that if they swallowed it, it was already over for them.